Make sure it's good on the. Okay, we're good. All right, we're live. We're ready to go. What's going on, man? KingSithis here, back at it with another live stream slash debate slash discussion with Vexy, my friend here, Vexy. Say hello, Vexy.
Yo, what up?
How you doing, man? Vexy, he basically hit me up in my comment section. He said that he wanted to have a discussion with me about anarcho-capitalism, the ethics of anarcho-capitalism, and things like that. So, yeah. All right. So, do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, sure. Well, so yeah, I go by Vexy online. I have a YouTube channel. I only have like one video on there, which is another debate. Um, yeah, you can check that out, I guess. That's it.
All right. So, what's your ideology? What do you consider yourself?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think I'm like kind of standard, like left wing. Sort of, in favor of like kind of basic left wing positions. Like, I'm in favor of like taxes, the state, and like welfare, stuff like that.
All right. So, it seems the topic of discussion is that you it seems that you commented on my taxation is theft debate between me and Lego, and it seems you took issue with me saying that taxation is theft, right?
Yeah, for the most part. So, well, so I watched the debate. I don't think the other guy did a good job of like kind of responding to some of the things he said. I think I could do a better job. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, I guess we can go into it. I'll just give like I guess I can give like a brief opening statement because I prepared one.
Yeah, no problem. Go
Um,
ahead, man.
yeah, okay. So, to open up, so like, when it comes to the question of whether taxes is theft, we can go down two different routes. One, we can talk about the legality of taxes. Obviously, I don't think we're going to get into that because taxes are obviously legal, so they're not legally theft. So then the main question that remains is, whether they're morally theft or not. This is going to depend on two different factors. One, so there are going to be two different arguments that we're going to probably get into. One being the ethics of like property rights and such like that. So whether or not taxes are theft, in my view, is whether or not you consider the property of the tax income or whatever is being taxed to be owned by the person who supposedly holds the income, or whether it belongs to the state or whoever the state distributes it to. And then the other thing that we might get into is regarding, whether it's justified to use force, or whether um, whether it's like it's good to be voluntary or not, and what does it mean to be voluntary? So we can get into both of those. Yeah, so I guess like we can start with the first thing, which is property. So I hold the position that like I don't think that the taxes are the property of the a person who holds onto it. I just think they happen to be holding onto it, but I think it belongs to the state.
Okay, no problem. So, how do you come upon private property?
How do I come upon?
Like, how do you come to own something?
Well, so I think if I'm making like if I'm just describing how generally I see it is that like in we have like a market system, people can trade goods with money and like exchange stuff, and I think that's generally how we own things, but I don't think that's always the case.
Okay, so let's say you're on an island and you are by yourself and you cut down a stick. Is that your stick?
Um, is there anybody else on this island, or is it just me?
Nope, just you.
Okay, so just me. So yeah, I'd probably say that I own it.
That is your stick. And it would, okay, so let's put another person on that island. You cut down the sticks, you mix your land labor with the land to create that spear or some sort of something item with utility. Would it be a violation of your property rights for that person to unconsensually take that thing from you?
Um, Generally, yeah, but not in all cases.
Okay. So when would it be okay to take that thing from him?
So, well, I guess, yeah, so this kind of gets into my ethic where it's like, I think that if we, it's like, if we can imagine certain hypotheticals where I would say it'd be justified for him to take the stick. Like, for example, if, I don't know, let's say that like the stick, like he really needed the stick or he would die. I think that he should have the stick, and I don't think I should.
So because you're going to die, that gives you the right to aggress upon me and take violate my property rights.
Well, when you say aggress, I think that begs the question because so like whether or not it's aggression depends on who owns it, right? So if I consider
Yep.
him to own it, then I would be the one aggressing on him by not giving it to him.
So you would say that just aggression is okay if the other person is going to die.
Well, again, I don't think it's aggression, but I would say that like
Well, you
if
agreed that
he's
that was that person's property, right?
yes, I say that it's his property, and I think that like if I'm holding on to it and I refuse to give it to him in the case that he's gonna die, I think that I'm the one
And
violating the
and
property
under
rights of
the
him.
libertarian ethic, the definition of aggression and how we look at it is defined as the initiation of conflicts. So if somebody is about to die, you believe that it's okay for him to initiate a conflict. That's him.
Um, if I sorry, if do I think it's right for me to initiate the conflict?
For
No.
him in that hypothetical
Oh,
scenario.
for him to initiate the conflict. So again, I think that we might disagree on like the definitions here, but I guess like for just like I understand how you would perceive it. So yeah, I would say yes.
hmm Okay, so then you basically believe that. So when is it? Is it just when people are going to die that it's okay to take something from somebody?
Um, there are more cases. It's like so. I'm like a consequentialist. So essentially, I believe that I don't really believe fundamentally in like ownership in like an ethical sense, but I believe that like it's yeah like in cases where someone seems to be able to make more like significantly more like utility out of an item, I think that they have the right to it.
Do we own our bodies?
No,
No. Who owns your body?
no one.
So then, okay. Is your body a scarce resource?
My body. Well, yeah,
Okay. So
I guess.
then, who has the right to that scarce resource?
Um, so it once again depends on the situation. So like I think generally I have the right to it, but like there are cases. So like for example, if I
If
commit
you
a
haven't
crime
committed an
and
aggression,
I haven't committed aggression, yeah, so it's gonna depend on the on what we define as aggression. But I would say yeah, if I haven't
I
committed
defined
aggression,
aggression. If
I
you
guess
want me to say it again.
no, no. So what I'm saying though, like I understand how you define it. I'm just saying
Mhm.
that like I would have a disagreement on the definition, but it doesn't matter. It's like I understand how you're using it, but and I would just say that like yeah, it's
Is it
yeah,
okay for
like if it's
somebody to initiate aggression upon your body without your consent? If you haven't committed an
um
aggression against another person.
sometimes yeah.
Okay, when?
So like I give the example of like if someone's on the verge of death, I and like and aggression is the only action that would potentially save like a life. I think that the kind of math checks out there. I think it's justified.
Okay, no problem. So, for instance, if there's a hypothetical situation where there's like a rare disease, where this group of people are going to die if they do not rape this one person or another person, you would say it would be morally justified for that group to rape that person, because if not, they would die.
Yeah, probably.
Really?
If it's like a yeah, I mean, if it's a group of people who are gonna die if they don't violate one person's bodily autonomy, I think that's fine. I mean, like, so I could, so like, yeah, I know that that's like kind of a reduction in the view, but like, I could equally like postulate certain things against your view, right? I could be like, like, would it be justified to like steal a penny to prevent like 1,000 rapes? And you would say no.
No, absolutely not. And well, the
Yeah.
thing is, because the person who is committing the thousandth rape is making a decision on themselves to commit that rape. So it isn't my fault that I don't allow someone to steal from me.
Um. Well, yeah. I mean, sure, I understand that, but like, if yeah, but like, if that was the only way to stop it, like, you would say it's immoral, which I think
Of
is
course,
kind of like
because committing aggressions is immoral, but also committing that thousandth rape is also immoral. So I'm not saying it's okay to commit those rapes. I'm saying both actions are wrong. But I'm also saying that it's not okay for you to take my penny to do if it meant preventing that. But that's not me saying that I think that it's okay for that to happen. Both actions are completely immoral. Any aggression
sure,
is
yeah.
immoral.
Yeah, sure. So you're not saying it's okay to happen, but like
hmm
you're saying that there's no obligation to
But
stop
you
it
would
if you have the
say,
ability to.
it would be good. So like, there's two people at an island, and one needs to rape the other person in order to survive. You would say it would be morally okay to rape that person.
If two people are on an island and one need to rape the other to survive. Yeah, I think yeah.
Yeah, so the difference between me and you is I would never morally justify rape, whereas I could put you in a situation where you could morally justify rape.
Well, I mean, like, so yeah, but it's kind of like I think it's kind of a distinction or a difference. Like you would say that, like, so you wouldn't say it's justified, but like you wouldn't do anything to stop the rape in the case where you could.
Well, I would try to stop the rape, but if it entails me committing an aggression, I would not commit the aggression. Two aggressions does not solve for stopping another. What committing one aggression doesn't solve for another person committing another aggression. That person has
like,
yeah. Sorry.
Well, so I gave you a hypothetical where it would be the case that if you aggress on someone, it would stop the other aggression, but you wouldn't. You
No,
wouldn't
I would
aggress to
not
stop the
because
aggression.
that person, in the end of the day, an aggression is an act that another person has to initiate, right? And if another person is initiating an aggressive act, they are choosing to do that. So me refusing to give up my penny isn't me making them do that. It is just me refusing them to make the penny, and then they're choosing to rape someone. Whereas in your situation, there's two people, right? One needs to rape the other in order to get it, and you're justifying raping that person, and you're saying that it's good to rape that person to keep that other person alive.
Yeah, so I'm saying it's justified.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean,
You
I
don't
guess
see the
that's
issue with that? You don't
well, I
see
mean,
any issue with that?
well, so first of all, I guess to clarify one thing, I'm not saying that rape is like intrinsically good. I'm just saying that for the purposes of saving a life, I think that, or like saving lives, I think that there can be cases where it's justified. So the rape would still be a negative. It's just that I'm weighing like overall what's the cost benefit, like the harm to
My
keep like
issue, yeah, so like my issue with this whole ideology is that basically you could justify any immoral act if I can convince you that it is better than the other act.
you can, well, I mean, like,
Genocide, rape, child murder, child prostitution, any immoral act.
well, okay, so like, yeah, I mean, you could like stipulate hypotheticals where I could say that it was justified. Like, obviously, we could do that all day. But I'm like, I mean, like, I wouldn't like advocate for like just people can just rape whatever they want. It would have to be like in
I
situations
understand
where
that you may listen. I'm not saying that you think that people should be allowed to rape whoever you want. What I'm saying is that I can give you. You can never give me a hypothetical where I would say it's okay to rape someone. Never. There's not one hypothetical. I could give you a hypothetical where you would say it's morally okay. In fact, you would say it's morally obligated to rape somebody.
yeah, I would say it's morally justified. Yeah, yeah.
See, my issue with that is then you could basically justify any immoral act: genocide, murder, rape, racism, child prostitution, child slavery, rape, and anything, any immoral act, if I could convince you that it's better than the alternative.
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, like, okay, so again, we could go back to like the other thing where it's like the same would happen to you, except and you would say that you wouldn't be like as long as it the only way to stop it would be to commit an aggression. You would also say that you're not obligated to do anything to stop it, which
No,
I feel is kind of equally worse.
I mean it. But am I the one committing the aggression against that person?
No, but I think it matters if you can
Do
stop it.
I
I think
do I think that it's okay to commit an aggression against that person?
well, I mean, so the thing is, I don't think that it's okay either. Right? I think
Do
that,
I
but
think
like,
it would be morally justified to do that?
yeah. So you wouldn't think it's morally justified to stop like
To do that, to rape somebody.
yeah, to like stop like an even worse act, right?
Yeah, so no. If I refuse to give them my property, and that person goes and rapes those thousand people, I would still think that it's immoral for them to do that. No matter what,
Well,
right?
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you would think it's immoral, but I mean, the thing is that like,
Whereas
the only
you
way...
would think that it would be morally justified. You would not think it would be immoral. You would say it would be moral to do that.
Yeah, I would say it'd be morally justified. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the difference between me and you.
Sure. Well, I mean, like, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess that's kind of like a fundamental moral difference, I guess. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I just
See,
think
the
that, like,
thing
that's
is,
kind of...
I have an ethical, deontological view, right? I don't think it's right to
Yeah.
commit any aggression for any reason against any other person. Rape, murder, taking their private property, stealing a penny from them. It's not right. You know what I mean? It's just simply is not okay to do that. And to stray from that, to say that it is okay to commit an aggression, you basically have no real ethics. Your ethics can be changed on a whim based on circumstance.
I mean, like, I think that's well. I mean, to me, that's kind of obvious, but I think that like an ethic would have to change based on the circumstances.
No, well, the thing is, if it causes people to commit aggressions against other people, you know, to me, that's always
Yeah,
going to be wrong.
yeah, sure. So I guess like okay, so because you keep bringing up the word aggression, so yeah, I guess like so I have like a different. So like I said before, like I have a different like definition of aggression. So like when I say that, like for example, it's okay, like I would not consider the state taxing someone to be aggression, like in my view.
Okay. Are you consensually paying into taxes?
No.
Okay. So you would agree that taxes is an unconsensual taking of another person's private property.
Yeah, but I think anarcho-capitalism would be non-consensual too.
How so?
Sure. Okay. So under anarcho-capitalism, you still have one rule, like which is that you would have to respect property rights, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, and if I disagree with your property rights under Ancapistan, like you would say it would be justified to use force against me.
No, it would work the same way as it works now. If the person who has or possesses the good that is that they hold is assumed to be the owner, unless the person who is making the accusation comes forth with evidence that he took it from him. You can't just take things
Okay.
from other people without permission.
So hold on. Let's okay. Cool. Are you like do you know what moral realism is?
No,
Are you okay? Do you believe like morals are objective?
I don't know. I'm dabbling in it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm still learning it. There's okay.
Are you like a are you like one of those like argumentation ethics people?
I'm learn I I'm learning about it. I'm learning about it and
Okay.
I'm starting to understand it, but I'm not fully 100% convinced. But it does
Oh,
make sense to me.
okay. Because yeah, I saw you had like a conversation with Liquid Zoo. I think that argument is kind of garbage, but if you're not like, confident in it, we don't have to get
No,
into
we
it.
could
But
talk about argumentation ethics. To me, from what I hear about argumentation ethics, is that basically if you just decide to make an argument, you are basically admitting that you think that making an argument is better than committing an aggression. If not, then you wouldn't make that argument in the first place.
yeah, okay. So I'll get okay. So we can talk about that then. So if I make an argument and I can say something like, yeah, in within an argument, I can acknowledge that it is good to like argue instead of quote unquote aggressing upon you.
Hmm.
And then I could also say that like outside of the argument, when I'm not arguing with you, it'd be okay for me to aggress on you. I don't think there's a contradiction
Well,
there,
then you
right?
would be making an argument.
Exactly. So like if I'm
So
not
if
making
you're
an
making an
argument,
argument, you think that making an argument is better than committing an aggression.
yeah, if I'm making an argument at that time, I could say that at that time it's
Yeah.
better to argue than to aggress. But
Yes.
outside of that time, I could say that it's justified to aggress instead of argue.
If you were to propose that it's justified to commit an aggression, you would be contradicting yourself.
Sure,
And
but I don't
even
necessarily
later
have.
on in the conversation, even later, no matter
What do you mean?
at any point, if you were to ever propose that you think that making an argument or making committing an aggression is better than making an argument, you would be contradicting yourself. Because by making an argument, you think you are presupposing that making an argument is better than committing an aggression. The reason why that is because actions are purposeful. People do not think do rational actors do not do things for no reasons. If you make so for instance, if I have an apple or if I have this can of ghost energy drink and I sip it, you can assume that I am choosing to drink that thing. I have a lower level of discomfort, and by drinking this thing, I will have a higher level of comfort. I will be better off. So if you are choosing to make an argument, we can only presuppose by that action, because actions are reasonable, purposeful, that you believe that making an argument is better than committing an aggression. If you thought that committing an aggression was better than making an argument, you would just simply commit an aggression and not argue at
Well,
all.
well, I mean, but that's my point, right? So like I could, so like the problem with argumentation ethics is that like I would reject the idea that like, so I would reject the idea that that you can make the assumption that I am saying that it's always justified to argue instead of aggressing. I could say that like only when I argue, like in this specific argument that I'm having with you, yeah, it is preferable now to argue
Well,
instead of aggress. But,
if you make any time that you make an argument, that's correct. Any time that you make an argument, you are saying that you think, well, you're not saying, but you're implying that you believe that making an argument is better than committing an aggression. You could go and commit an aggression, right, afterwards, but that would make you inconsistent with your ethic.
I don't think so.
Why is that?
Because like, okay, let me use an example. Okay, do you think it is? Do you think that you should sleep sometimes?
Yes.
Can you justify that you should sleep outside of sleeping, like when you are asleep?
No.
Okay, so if you can't justify that you should sleep when you're asleep, then that means that you can't argue that that you should sleep, right? Because to do so, you necessarily have to not be asleep.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you're asleep, you're not conscious.
Yeah.
So you're not making an argument.
Yeah. Okay. So like
you're not making it when you're asleep. You're not making an argument. You're not committing an action. You're not trying to get to the truth of anything.
Okay. But that's the thing. So it's like you wouldn't say if I say something like if I make the argument you should sleep sometimes. You don't think it's inconsistent, right?
No.
Okay. So then if I say that you should aggress sometimes, how is that inconsistent?
Because by making an argument, you presuppose that you think that making an argument is better than committing an aggression. By sleeping, you think that sleeping is better than not sleeping. You know what I'm saying? So if you were to, in your sleep, wake up and then say you can't sleep and not asleep at the same time. Like, it's kind of hard to explain, but basically committing when you make an argument, you're presupposing that you think that making an argument is better than committing an aggression. If you make an argument later that you think it's better to make an argument or to commit an aggression, you would be going against your earlier claim.
Okay. So this is the issue, right? Is that like when I am arguing, I can say that at this point so since I am arguing, then yeah, it is better to argue now and not to aggress. But when I am aggressing, I wouldn't be arguing with you.
You would not be arguing with me. You would be aggressing. But the thing is, you would not be making. Then you would be inconsistent with your ethic, because then you would say 1 minute you're saying it's not okay to make an argument. It is okay. It's not okay to commit it, or I believe it's better to make an argument than committing an aggression. And then the next minute you're committing an aggression.
Okay, so would you say that when you argue, you are also presupposing that it is better to argue than to sleep? When you argue, so since I'm arguing with you right now, could we make the assumption that you also express the preference that it is better to argue than to fall asleep?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Okay. So like, so this is like a part of so in argumentation ethics, there's like a thing where it's like, so for example, like I could never argue that I should not argue, right? Because that'd be contradictory. Because I am arguing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, but another thing that it would have to presuppose necessarily is that like if I am arguing with you, then like I'm also kind of expressing a preference, which is that I would rather argue with you right now than fall asleep.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So so if I would rather argue with you right now than fall asleep, okay. Hold on. So, yeah. So like,
sleeping is not an aggression, though. Going to sleep doesn't contradict making an argument. Committing an aggression contradicts making an argument. It would go against making an argument.
Well, okay, so no, okay. So aggressing means you're not making an argument, and sleeping also means you're not making an argument.
Yeah, but aggressing, right, is the initiation of conflict over scarce resources. You don't do that when you're sleeping. You're asleep. That's the difference.
Okay, but yeah, but I don't see. Okay, so like the problem with that is that like I don't really see how that makes a difference, because like in both cases, like
the initiation of there's a stick, right? If you're asleep, you're not initiating conflict over over the stick, are you?
No, but I don't see how that's relevant, because
if you're committing if you have somebody else has a stick and I come up to you and I take that stick by committing an aggression, I have committed an aggression against that person. I've made an action that violates that other person's property right.
Sure, but like, so okay, so like the issue here is that like you're trying to make an argument that I am being inconsistent with my ethic by,
Yes.
like arguing at one point and then aggressing at one point,
Hmm.
right? And so the way that you're trying to justify that is that like because I could never argue that I could never make an argument that I should be like aggressing upon you. That
Without
therefore it's
contradicting,
inconsistent,
yeah.
right? Without contradicting, yeah. So what I'm saying is that with the sleeping example, I could also never argue um, that like I should be asleep, right? Or that you should sleep without like kind of contradicting, because by not sleeping, I'm saying that it's better to argue than to sleep.
It's better to
You get
argue than to sleep. Yeah, but that doesn't
yeah,
mean. Yeah, but sleeping doesn't contradict making an argument.
yes, it does. If you're asleep, you can't make an argument.
Yes, but the thing is, sleeping is not an aggressive act.
But how is that relevant to the inconsistency? It would still be inconsistent, right? If I argued that I should be asleep right now, because
Well,
if I'm not
because
sleeping right now, yeah,
the thing is, making sleeping means that you're not making an argument, right?
yeah,
Committing
and
an
aggressing means that you're
aggression,
not.
committing
It
an
means that you're not making an argument.
yes, but committing an aggression is also not making an argument while
Yeah,
also violating a person's property rights. That's the difference. You could choose to
sure.
not making an argument is not committing an aggression. It's not the same thing.
Okay, sure. I understand that you have an issue with making an aggression, but what I'm saying to you is that like I don't really see how that it's inconsistent. If the sleeping example isn't inconsistent, I don't see how this is inconsistent.
Because making an argument doesn't presuppose that you shouldn't sleep.
Well, it presupposes that you don't think that you should sleep right now, right?
At that moment. But you
Yeah,
could sleep later.
and you could also aggress later outside of argument.
Yes, but aggressing, okay, is okay. When you make an argument, right? You're
Yeah.
saying that you believe that making an argument is better than committing an aggression, and if you're saying that you are making, if you want to, you think that sleeping, you would say that statement again.
Okay, yeah. So what I'm saying is that so like when I'm aggressing, I'm also not arguing. When I'm sleeping, I'm also not arguing, right? Both are and like and I when I am arguing, I could never argue that I should be aggressing, and when I'm arguing, I could never argue that I should be sleeping, because when I'm arguing, I'm expressing that.
Okay, I understand. The problem with that is when you're committing an aggression, you're bypassing argumentation to commit an action. But with sleeping, you're not doing that. You're just sleeping. You're not committing any action against any other person.
Okay, but I'm not understanding how that expresses an inconsistency then.
Well, because you're not initiating a conflict when you're sleeping. When you make an argument against somebody, you're initiating a conflict, right? And by like having a conversation or trying to come to the truth of a situation, you're trying to come to the truth. You're making an argument. You're trying to come to the truth of a situation, right? And then if you choose to aggress afterwards, then you're making it. You're basically going against what you were saying before. But the thing is, when you're sleeping, you're not initiating a conversation. You're not trying to get to the truth of anything. So it's not relevant to an argument.
No. So the issue is that like the issue is that like when what I am saying is that like so I reject your kind of assumption that when I argue, I'm making the argument that that arguing is always preferable to aggression. I could say that arguing is preferable to aggression.
I never said that. I said that if you're making an argument at the time that you're making the argument, you are saying that you prefer to make an argument than committing an aggression. That doesn't mean that I'm saying that every single time. You know what I'm saying? If you were to later say you do think it's better to commit an aggression, because you're saying 1 minute you're saying I think it's better to make an argument than committing an aggression, and then next minute you're saying I think it's better to commit an aggression. You're not really being consistent there.
Wait. No. Okay, so like, but then that could apply to the sleeping as well, because when I'm arguing with you, I'm saying I prefer to argue than to sleep. And when I'm sleeping, I'm expressing a preference that I prefer to sleep than to argue. So how is that not inconsistent as well then?
Well, because you don't think that you're not saying that you don't think you should sleep. You're just saying that you think that making an argument is better than sleeping.
Okay, but wait, why couldn't I say that about aggression as well? I'm saying that I'm not saying that when I'm arguing, I'm not saying that I shouldn't aggress. I'm just saying that right now, arguing is better than aggression. right? It's the same thing.
Yeah, but I never said that by making an argument you're saying that you shouldn't aggress. All I'm saying is that 1 minute you're saying that I should aggress, and the next minute you're saying I shouldn't.
Okay, and
Hmm.
at one point in time when I'm arguing, I'm saying that I shouldn't sleep, and when I'm sleeping, I'm expressing the preference that I should sleep. It's the same thing, right?
Hmm. Let me think about that. I'm not really good with this whole argumentation ethics thing. That's
Yeah,
just my
that's fine.
that's
We
my
don't.
whole understanding of it. That's just my understanding of it. I'll have to think about
Yeah,
that.
that's fine. That's fine. We didn't need to get into that. Like
Hmm.
I was okay
I
without getting
guess
into that, but like,
what I would have to
yeah.
say to that is, hmm, if you're isn't the but sleeping doesn't contradict making an argument, does it?
Well, I mean, like if you're asleep, you can't make an argument, isn't that right?
Well, yes,
You can't.
but
Yeah,
that's not contradicting making an argument.
sure. And
Not
but
making
like,
an argument and not like that's not contradictory.
well, yeah. But when I'm aggressing,
But in
I'm not making
aggressing
an argument
is
either, right?
contradictory to making an argument.
I don't see how.
Well,
Like
because
why?
you could either make an argument or you can either aggress.
And you could either make an argument or you could sleep. You can't do both at the same time.
Hmm. Well, the thing is, it doesn't contradict each other, as far as I could tell.
I, but like they seem the same to me. I don't see how you could say one's a contradiction and one's not.
Well, because one, you can. Yeah, I guess you're right about that. I guess I'll have to think about that. Argumentation ethics. I never really thought
Yeah,
about that.
yeah, that's fine. Like we didn't need to get into that. Like that's
Hmm.
yeah.
But I
What
guess
I
I
was
generally,
yeah
like I said like earlier, I was kind of just I'm more learning about it. And I've never thought about it in that way. So I guess I'll have to ask somebody about that.
yeah that's okay. Like
But I
yeah
do make another argument that isn't
yeah
just based on argumentation ethics, and that I think
yeah
that
yeah.
is just simply moral, right? Immoral to commit aggressions against other people. Generally, it's just my personal view.
Sure, I understand that.
Hmm.
But like what we were talking about before we got into this whole argumentation ethics thing is that whether or not like so you think that under anarcho-capitalism there wouldn't be any like involuntary
Well, there
it would be
shouldn't
completely
be any.
voluntary, right?
Yeah, there shouldn't be.
Yes. So just real quick, what's your definition of voluntary?
Voluntary. That means that you're doing something with your own volition. You're choosing to do it, and nobody else is making you do it, like physically forcing you, or a threat or anything like that.
Okay, so basically, you are free to do whatever you wish without any kind of like force, like being
From like I
put
guess
upon you.
another person.
From okay, sure, yeah, and so like, I don't think it's even possible to make like a voluntary society using that definition because necessarily so like um under anarcho-capitalism the kind of example I was talking about was like with property. Like if I were living under your world and I didn't agree with your notion of property rights, you would still say it would be justified to force me to accept your property norm, right? That would be involuntary.
Well, the thing is, retaliation and aggression are two different things. The initiation of force, you can't really complain about another person retaliating against you if you've initiated force against another person.
But okay, but that's the thing is that like our conception of what initiation is and what aggression is could change depending on the person. So like this is an example of like a view that someone could hold. Someone could say something like, it is immoral for anybody to claim like exclusive access to any resource, and like people should be free to to take whatever they want as long as they're not harming each other, like each other's bodies. But they can't like take, but like you can't say that like oh you can't walk on my land or something. That would be immoral. And if someone holds that view under like your worldview, they would and like say they like walk onto another person's property which they don't view as being like owned by anybody,
Hmm.
then you would say that they're committing like an aggression, but they wouldn't think so. And so like that's kind of the point is that like you would have
Oh
to
well,
involuntarily force
I'm
your
not a
worldview on them.
utopian. Obviously there are
Yeah,
going to be people who, don't necessarily agree with property rights. But
that's what I'm saying.
yeah. There's always going to be people who disagree with property rights. Of course, it's not to say. But the issue, well, I guess my thing is just like, as a libertarian and as a anarcho-capitalist, I just tell you what I believe is right and what I believe is what I believe is ethical and what is unethical. You know what I'm saying? All I could tell you was whether or not that action is ethical or unethical.
Yeah, I
You
understand.
know.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So I understand that that's kind of our foundational like ethical. What I'm just
Hmm.
trying to explain is that like I don't see that. I don't really think that like anarcho-capitalism is voluntary either. I think that any system that you propose necessarily has to have some amount of like involuntary force of like an ethic on someone else.
Um, I mean, it depends on what you mean by that.
So I get the example right. So it's like necessarily. So like for example, under the current system, um, it seems to be the case that like people or like the current system kind of holds more towards my worldview than to yours, right? Where it's like I would say that like the tax money doesn't belong to you; it belongs to the government. Therefore, they're justified in taking that property that belongs to them from you.
Hmm.
And like you would say that's immoral because it's your ethic.
Hmm.
Whereas like let's say we flip that and now we live under your world, and it's like the disagreement would now be that like I think that you hold some income that doesn't rightfully belong to you, whereas you think that you rightfully own all of your income. And then you, under your world, you would say that it's justified to force me to accept your views. Under my world, I think it's justified to force you to accept my views.
Yes, but natural law is the natural uh, state of things. Non-aggression is the natural state of human beings. So for you to go and violate another person's rights, you're sort of you're violating natural law. I'm not forcing you to do it. I'm not forcing you to. If you commit an aggression against me, I'm not forcing you to conform to my ideology. You're the one that's forcing me.
Uh, okay, well, okay, but here's the thing, though, right? Like aggression, your conception of aggression, both of our conception of aggression, is going to be fundamentally just defined based on our property rights, right?
Hmm.
So, like, under your view, taxes are aggression. Under my view, it's not because we just define like what we consider because like it's just based on like how we define the notion of property rights. So, right,
Well, no,
like,
I agree with that. Like, obviously,
yeah,
if you live in a country where they don't recognize property rights, you're going to be shit out of luck.
no,
Um,
it's not even about like legal. I'm just talking about like morally. Like,
well,
we can have
morally
different.
too. You know what I'm saying? Even
Yeah,
you can only really own something generally. Like, okay, well, I guess our thing is about whether or not things are ethical or unethical. It's not about how it's gonna work or how it's. We obviously recognize there are going to be people with different ideologies. What we're trying to do is change the ideology. We're trying to convince people of non-aggression, to not commit aggressions and things like that.
I understand that. I mean, like, yeah. So yeah, I get that. That's kind of like again like another kind of difference is that like I like we have a different set of ethics as like I guess we've kind of already established. So
Hmm.
like these kind of concepts of like aggression, whether something is ethical or not, is gonna like that's kind of like just the disagreement, the main like dispute.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Okay, so what's your point?
Well, so like no, okay. So like just my point was yeah that was my point. It was just like you seem to kind of agree that
No,
like
yeah, everybody
we
is going to have their own ethical worldview, and
yeah that's
yeah, but the thing is, um, you know, like libertarian isn't trying to force any ideology upon anybody. It
it
is
is though.
just what how.
I explain this right because it's like under your like worldview, if we lived in an anarcho-capitalist world, you necessarily have to enforce you by saying something is ethical or unethical. You necessarily have to enforce that your theory of property rights is the one that should be enforced and therefore correct. But like someone could disagree with that, and even if they disagree with it, like as long you would still say that it's justified to like use force against them because in your view it's aggression, even though in their view it wouldn't be, right? So that would be
Oh,
force.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I mean, maybe to them, but the thing is, property
Well,
rights
even to
we
you, right?
have. Well, no, it wouldn't be force
Oh no,
because it would be retaliation. If somebody takes another thing from another person, they're the one committing an aggression. An aggression is pretty easily defined.
but your definition of involuntary was that just like someone is free to do something without like any use without someone else using force
Okay,
upon them,
okay, yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, then I should
Yeah.
say without aggression. I shouldn't say involuntary.
Okay,
I
sure.
want to live in
Yeah.
a world where without aggression. Yeah, I guess you're correct in saying that.
Yeah, sure. That's fine. Yeah. So
Hmm.
yeah, that was just the main thing I was trying to point
Yeah,
out
yeah,
trying
I
to make is
understand
that
what you're
like
saying. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so what I mean by that is like don't want to live in a world where people are forced to do things without their consent with their private property that they don't want to. That's what I mean
sure, sure.
involuntary.
Uh Okay, sure. Like, yeah, if you define it that way, yeah. Like
Mm-hmm.
obviously, then the disagreement would just be like based on property again,
Mm-hmm.
because like, we have a fundamental different view on that. Um, I guess okay. What else can we talk? I guess okay. I guess I can just like kind of ask you some questions based on like how you understand property. So like how has property come to be owned in your view?
Well, us libertarians, we believe in kind of the Lockean point of view, which,
Yeah.
but we have kind of like a revised version. Rothbard, he kind of came up with like a new, like a revision to it, where Locke, he kind of was like, whatever you mix your labor with the land, that thing is yours so long as there's enough for other people, you know, and so that other people could take it. And but we revise it. We don't think that that really makes sense, because if something is yours and you mix it with your labor, to me there's no real justification to take that without your consent. So we revise it and says if there's something that is yours, it doesn't matter if there's enough for everybody else. That thing belongs to you.
Sure, I understand that. So
Mm-hmm.
like okay, so you basically follow the lock-in principle of like you mix your land with labor, that's
Yeah, we
yours.
just with a slight revision to it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
The
just
revision being that like you don't care about like if there's enough for other people.
yeah,
Like if you own it, you own it.
that is yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so when you say mixing land with labor, do you? This isn't really like I don't know. Like,
Like I could give an
do you?
example, like if
Yeah,
you're on an island and you break down a stick,
yeah.
and you turn it into a spear. That would be an example of you mixing your labor with the land.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess like, do you have like so like when you say like labor, do you think that like for example, if I just pick up an object, is that like enough labor to
Yep.
consider it mine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're that is like you're working. It's like labor is like another way of like saying working. You're using your body to do something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess like yeah,
And it
because
must
this,
be an
this is like a
unowned resource,
yeah.
or if it is owned, the person must allow you to use it.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is okay, this is kind of like an example that another libertarian gave, which is like so like for example, let's say that like we like I'm next to like an ocean that's like nobody has like walked across yet or like seen yet or like come across yet, and I just like dump like a can of like soup or something inside the ocean. Is it and like the soup can is mine. It belongs to me. So if I mix my property with the property of the ocean, does the entire ocean become mine?
No, the thing is, whatever part of the ocean that you decided to pick up, that would be yours, not the whole ocean. See, like
Well,
that, if it's like it's not that simple. Or if
well,
you well, and if you want, like, let's say you want a part of the ocean and you want to exclude
yeah,
other people off of it, you would have to create a way so that other people could see that you are indeed excluding other people from that thing. Because if so, then nobody would know that it is yours.
yeah. So yeah, I understand that from like a practical view, but I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying like, okay, so if you so like basically you're saying that whatever your like when you put that like can of like I don't know like soup or like whatever into the ocean, basically you're saying that whatever is contaminated, whatever part of the water that's contaminated by that would be your ownership, but everything else wouldn't be,
Yeah,
basically.
it, like I mean, in this, well, I no, what I mean by that is like if you were to like take water with your hands and scoop it up
Yeah,
and then drink it,
yeah,
that would make
yeah.
that water in your hand would be yours, right? You know what I mean? But that doesn't make the whole rest of the ocean yours. Uh, you have.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, but I'm trying to get like what you think about my example, where it's like if I put my property in something, say like a can of soda or something, I just dump it all in the ocean, and so now it's my property.
No,
The
it's not.
soda
The
is my
whole
property,
ocean wouldn't
and
belong to you.
yeah.
No,
So like what part of it would belong to me? Just the parts that like it mixes with the
I
with
guess the
the with
part
my
that
property.
maybe mixes with uh the what I mean well hmm. What are you're taking a can and you're throwing it into the thing.
Yeah, and the can so like the
Well, the
content of the
can would
can, like
belong
yeah,
to you, but
yeah, but like
the
yeah,
contents of the can isn't your body, so you're not mixing your land with the labor by that thing going into the water. So my example would be a better example because you're actually using your labor to pick up water, right, and then drink it.
well, okay,
Just
well, I
because,
guess I
so for instance, if you build a house on somebody else's land, that doesn't make that
yeah,
land yours, right?
for
Uh,
sure,
the
but
house
but
may
that's
be
because
yours, right?
yeah,
But
but that's because like the land was already owned right beforehand.
exactly.
I'm trying to yeah. But okay, so like I guess that's a bit interesting because
Mm-hmm.
like I would think that the reason you believe that mixing labor with land makes it yours is because you presumably think that you own your labor, right?
You own your body,
Yeah.
which produces the labor. Yeah.
So okay, you own your body. Okay. Um. So if you own your body and like you use your body to you mix essentially like you use your body to like to do something with the land, then that makes it yours, right? Basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So like basically to kind of like I guess make it more abstract. So like if you mix something that you own with something you don't own, that makes it yours,
No.
kind of.
No, because it's already owned. I've stipulated that it must be unowned.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
But that's what I'm saying. So like if you mix something that you own with something you don't own, then that makes it yours, right?
No,
Or something
because
not something you don't own. Sorry, something that is unowned.
oh, uh, if it depends on yeah, I mean, like if, for instance, if you're using a shovel to dig up dirt, you know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
that's
Then I guess yeah, that maybe that dirt could be yours.
yeah. So that's kind of like what I'm trying to get at with the ocean example, where it seems like if you throw like a can of like Coke into the ocean and like it mixes with the water, it's your and you own the Coke can, but the ocean is unowned.
Maybe you
You're
would be
mixing something
touching
you own.
maybe you would own the molecules of water that are surrounding the can, but
Uh,
I wouldn't say it
yeah,
would
so
make
like
you own the whole ocean. You know what I mean? That wouldn't make much sense to me.
right. So just everything that it like comes into contact with, like
Or yeah,
you would say.
like it would have to be practical. Like it wouldn't make sense to just be like, oh, I touched this thing, so therefore I own the whole thing. You know, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
okay, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, that's not really like a like an argument. I was just kind of like trying to,
No, yeah, I was.
like,
That's fine. You can ask me whatever you like, man.
um, yeah,
No
yeah. I
stupid
don't know. I think,
questions. No stupid questions. No, I'm not
no,
saying
yeah,
don't
like,
say a stupid question. I'm saying there are no stupid questions. You can ask me whatever you like.
yeah, yeah, that's fine.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was just trying to like, figure out like kind of how you
Hmm.
rationalize your views. Yeah, I don't know. Where can we take it from here? I guess if you want to interrogate any more of my views, you can. I'm trying
So
to think of anything I
taxation.
have.
Why do you not think taxation is theft?
Okay. Yeah, so I kind of explained this, right? So it's like I don't think taxation is theft because I think that so I'm a consequentialist. I believe that there's like good consequences to taxes and therefore like it that by justifies the property right. So like I said, I don't really have like a ethical like concept of ownership. I just don't believe in it like ethically. I just believe it's like a legal thing. So like I just believe that like who like whatever like produces the best consequences is like makes it like the kind of justified the person who produces the best consequences with the resource is justified in having possession of it.
How do you know what's the best consequence before you make the action?
Well, necessarily you can't really know anything before it happens, right? But
So
you
then,
can
how do you
deduct
know
from
what the
evidence.
choices that you're making are better, are gonna turn out to be better?
Well, you can kind of infer from like evidence, right? So like for example, I know that or like I don't know, but like I think it's pretty reasonable like to conclude that like being in poverty is bad, and like people who are in poverty are probably suffering a lot.
Hmm.
And I think that like if you tax someone, you take like a small portion of their income, you give it to someone who has less money but can make but like like a dollar to like a poor person is a lot more value than a dollar to a rich person. So I think if you take that dollar from the rich person, give it to the poor person, it seems that it would increase the amount of like like good, positive, like sort of happiness in the world.
So basically, if people are happier than then you think that we should make that decision.
Yeah, so yeah, kind of like a sort of standard like utilitarian sort of view.
So, like, let's say if enslaving a group of people made the majority of the population better or happier, you would endorse slavery.
Well, okay. So you're yeah. Well, if we presuppose that like the suffering of the slaves aren't as are like not as like great as like the enjoyment that the other people get, then I guess yeah. But I would obviously like in reality I would contest the idea that like slavery like people being enslaved are suffering less than like the enjoyment that people get.
Yeah, but if you have, say, 5 people who are enslaved and are doing a large amount of work, and we have 100 people who are benefiting from that enslavement, um, you would say that those people are like those 100 people together have to be more happy than those 5 people, even if they are
Uh,
enslaved.
not not necessarily. So like
But say
it
they
can be the
were.
case.
What if they were?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's what I said. If we just presuppose that like the values add up such that the 100 people are happier, then yeah, I would say yes. But like I'm just saying that like if in a real life scenario, I would seriously doubt that that's the case. But yeah.
Um, okay. It just seems fucked because then you, like I said earlier, you could justify anything, anything, pretty much.
Well, I
But to
mean,
me, that's not even really having an ethic. You're just kind of whatever makes you feel better.
well, I disagree about that, right? So like, I think it is an ethic. I just think that like, so like, yeah, hypothetically, you can justify anything, but like, I think that like in most cases, or like the vast majority of cases, like, we're not gonna like rape is probably just always gonna be bad. Murder is always like not always, but like
Yeah,
usually
but
like in like
I could give you
99%.
a situation where like child rape, you would say it's more like you would be morally obligated to rape a child. I could give you a situation.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, like,
So,
yeah,
for
you can.
instance, let's say there's a utopia, right?
Yeah.
And everybody who lives in that utopia, there's billions, millions, and billions of people within that utopia, and they are all living great. And um, there's an abundance of food, no poor people, no poverty. But in order to keep up this whole utopia, you have to perpetually rape a child in a basement. And if somebody doesn't perpetually rape this child in the basement, then this utopia is going to collapse. You would say you would be morally obligated to rape that child.
Well, yeah, yeah. So if it's the case that like obviously the people in the utopia were obviously presuming that they're gonna be like basically infinitely happy because they're in a utopia. So like
So you don't
yeah, I
have a
would say
solid ethics. Your ethics just basically change based on your whims or whatever I could convince you is better than the other option.
I don't think that necessarily follows, right? So like I've kind of given you like I think the standard, which is that like whatever results in the net highest amount of
No, I
like
know, but
utility
what I'm saying
attached.
is
Yeah.
that you don't have a solid ethic, as in, like, for instance, I would say rape is wrong no matter what. No matter what hypothetical you give to me, rape is always going to be wrong. It's never going to be okay for you to use another person's body without your consent. But with you, it changes based on the circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, well, yeah, because yeah, I don't think that anything is like always 100% of the time wrong. I think that like yeah, we can talk about very, very niche cases where it might be justified. I
Hmm.
don't really see that as like a necessarily like kind of bad thing for an ethic to say it, right? Like, I think things do change based on the
Well,
context.
it's a bad thing if you think that rape is wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, yeah, but I think that like like if you have to rape someone to save the entire world, I think saving the entire world is good, and I think that justifies the bad thing you have to do to save the entire world. I don't
Hmm.
know. Yeah.
So, like, in the end of the day, it's just like about uh making people happy, basically.
Yeah, but yeah, you can summarize it as that sort of.
Even if making people happy is at the expense of other people. Well, some
Um,
people happy.
well, we'd have to like discuss like the extent because like if one per if like the expense of the other person like if the person who's getting like kind of I guess like fucked in this example where they're like their happiness is being removed, we have to weigh like who is being made like worse off by this arrangement.
How do you know whether or not someone's happier than another person? You can't like measure that.
Um, Well, so like I said, we kind of like so we don't have like the tools to like measure that in like a 100% like perfect knowledge sense, but I don't think we have like 100% knowledge of anything. But we can like abduct from like evidence sort of thing, right? Like we could just say like so like we can like use examples. So like for example, the poverty example I gave, I think it's pretty obviously the case that people who are in poverty are going to be less happy than people who aren't, and
So let's say if I took a dollar from a millionaire and gave it to a poor person, and then they went and took heroin and killed themselves. Uh, you would say that that would you would say that that would be justified or unjustified?
well obviously that would be unjustified, but like but like you're kind of just
But
giving
you
me
wouldn't
like the whole.
know that that heroin addict is going to go and take that dollar and buy a heroin and kill himself until after you make
Sure.
that decision, right?
Yeah, yeah, so yeah, of course, we wouldn't know what the consequence of
So
any
it
action
isn't
is,
really
like,
like a
fully.
given that taking money from a billionaire and giving it to a poor person is going to increase their happiness overall.
Well, yeah, Well, so like, but that's the thing is, well, yeah, sure, but I think that like, so you're kind of trying to apply the criticism of like we can't know like 100% how something's gonna happen, like unfold,
Yeah, so
right?
like I don't think if you don't know whether or not taking this dollar from this other person is actually going to make this other person happy, well then to me you're just like you're taking that thing from that other person in the hopes that you're going to make somebody else happy. And that to me is not enough.
Well, I mean, like, so I guess okay, this gets more into like kind of like an epistemic sort of thing because like I don't really think that we can 100% know like anything. So it's like we just have to do the best that we can with the like evidence that we have,
You got to
like
do
the
with the best what
information.
you got. But the problem is
Yeah.
that would entail violating people's property rights. You know what I mean? And I think that like we are better when we respect people's property rights. When you respect people's property rights, you just seem you like it is you just see more prosperity generally.
Okay, yeah, well, sure. But I guess like, but the thing again is that like we have a different kind of like how we can say conceive of property rights are going to be different, right? So like I have a different set of like I have a different like consideration for how I determine property rights than you do.
Yeah, but you don't have any way of distribute to figure out who owns what.
I don't think that's true. I mean, I do have a way, but
So
like
how do you know
you're
if somebody owns something?
how do I know? So well, I mean, like I said, like if they derive the most utility from it, then well, yeah, like
How do you
they
know
would be justified
that?
in. Okay, so okay, we can get into this. So like I don't believe that like we have like I said, I don't believe that we have perfect knowledge of anything, right? But it's like so like I can apply this criticism to your system as well, where it's like you can't know whether something is going to be is aggression or not until the action's actually been happened, right? It's the same with your system.
Well, yes, you can.
How?
Well, if
Can I,
yes, you can.
okay.
If you have a hammer and there's somebody walking across the street and you're gonna swing the hammer and hit their face, you know that you're gonna commit an aggression before you commit it.
Well,
That's why we have things such as premeditated murder, premeditated this. Like we
well,
know.
but that's but no, but the thing is like you don't know that 100%, right? Because it could be the case. Let's say that let's say that you're about to swing a hammer and like it looks like it's about to hit someone, but
Yeah,
what
but it's
actually
your
happens are
intentions,
like
right?
yeah, well, but you can never know someone's intention 100%, right? You have
Yeah.
to necessarily guess their intention.
Yes, but the thing is, if they were to take, regardless of their intention or not, if they were to take a thing and then hit somebody and aggress against them, that would still could be considered a violation, regardless of whether they intended on it or not.
Sure, but okay, yeah, but what I'm saying is that like, we like necessary. So like, this is kind of like a question of knowledge where it's like we don't even know whether it's like you can look at some
You're
you can like
violating that person's property right. We know that.
I don't think you do because like so like for example like to use that example if you're about to swing a hammer at someone's face
Hmm.
and like you're like a third party observer, it may look like it's probably going to be the case that the person is going to like hit the person with the hammer, but it could also be the
Yeah,
case
but
that
third
the guy
parties don't determine whether or not there's been a violation of a property right there. It would be you, or whoever the property is being violated against. So, for instance, if somebody is walking up to me and they're about to swing a hammer at me, and I don't want them to
yeah
swing a hammer at me, well, then right there, by me saying I don't want them to hit me, that would be him
okay
violating my right.
okay no hold on, so like let's say
And if
that
somebody
I
wants to know whether or not I wanted that, well, they could just simply ask me.
okay no okay, but like here's the thing, like if I'm like swinging a hammer and like it looks like it's about to hit you but it doesn't, have I committed an aggression?
Huh? No.
Yeah, exactly. But like you wouldn't be able to know whether or not it's going to hit you like 100%, right? You have to guess that it looks like it's going to hit you as it's coming towards you, right? So you necessarily have to make an assumption there. That's what I'm just trying to get at.
Yeah, but the assumption would be whether or not they're going to hit you. But if they hit you,
Yeah.
there is no assumption there. They did hit you.
Yeah, but that's what okay. So like to go back to my system, I'm saying it's the same thing. It's like I could never know like 100% what's going to be like like utility maximizing. But if it's the case that I did know, then like yeah, I would say that whatever's utility maximizing is good, right? We can yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
Well, the problem is aggression to us is going to always be wrong. Somebody swinging a hammer around, right? They can swing it
Yeah.
around all day, right?
Yeah.
But if they're about to swing it at you and they don't hit you, right? You
Yeah,
can walk
they
away
haven't
from
committed
them.
aggression.
Yeah, and they don't hit you. You can walk away from them. Now, if they're committing a threat against you, they're saying they're going to initiate aggression against you. Then
Sure.
you could reasonably say that that person is going to commit an aggression against me.
But I would see you had to include the word reasonably there because necessarily you have to make an assumption that yeah, they if
Well,
they,
if
if they're
somebody's
threatening
telling
you,
you they're
they
going to
have to.
commit an aggression, it's you would have. I mean, you have to go by their words, right?
Sure, but there can be cases where they might threaten you but not aggress on you, right? So like
Yeah,
I
but
could write a message.
making a threat is an
So I could
aggression.
write. No, I could write a message to you right now saying I'm going to come to your house and kill you. But I live like probably very far from you. I probably can't do it right now. So like, do you think you
Okay.
can take that
So
threat seriously?
an aggression it only becomes an aggression if if you are able to carry it out. So for instance, I can make a joke and say, "Hey, I'm gonna smack you," right? But if you live 200 miles away, obviously that's not a real threat. I don't have the capacity to actually go and commit that aggression. But
Yeah, but
with a
but
hammer, you're saying I'm going to commit an aggression, and you also have the capacity to commit the aggression. So that would be considered to be an aggression. So it's not
okay, but
simply
like,
saying I'm going to commit aggression. It's also having the capacity to do so.
sure, but like but even with that, right? Like, we also don't really 100% know like the capacity. So like, for example, I could make a threat right now. I could say like, I have like I hired like a hitman who's like outside your window and he's about to like shoot you with a sniper rifle, and you probably won't believe me right now because obviously that's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be the case that maybe I'm like Elon Musk and I'm like the richest man in the world, and like I actually did hire a sniper and he's about to shoot you right now.
Well,
And so
listen,
like
there's always going to be
yeah,
situations where it's going to be a little bit hazy, right?
yeah,
But whether or not
exactly.
it's an aggression or not an aggression is clear. That's what I'm saying.
It's clear after the aggression is made, but it's up before that. It's not 100% clear, right? There's necessarily some haziness in every situation.
Yes, but the thing is, in non-aggression is the natural state of thing, and committing an aggression is not the non-natural state of things.
I understand that you believe that, but what I'm just trying to tell you is that we both of our systems fall into like the same issue of like there's necessarily going to be some haziness in how we determine things. That's all I'm trying to make.
Yeah, but
Point out.
I'm not justifying my issue with your worldview is I'm not justifying violating people's rights based on this haziness. Like, I'm not saying we should commit an aggression based off of this hazy ideology.
Well,
There are
hold
situations
on.
where it's not always clear to tell whether or not if the aggression has happened or not happened. But I'm always going to be clear as to whether or not an aggression is okay or not okay. But
Okay, well,
you don't always have that. It's always hazy. Everything is hazy.
no, I reject that. So like, I so like, no. So like, the thing is that like, I'm telling you that like, I have a very clear line of like how I understand what's unethical or ethical. Whatever like produces the most amount of like utility, as I said, would be the ethical thing. Now, what you're saying is that like you can't really know that. But I'm saying like,
Well,
yeah, I can't know that
we could
practically
figure out whether or not a person commits an aggression or not commits an aggression.
after they aggress, right?
Yeah, after they
After they
aggress.
aggress.
But
Yeah, yeah,
you
not before
can't
that.
even after you commit an action. You can't always know whether or not that person was happier or happier, not happier.
Yeah, we can. What do you mean?
No, you can't.
Like,
How can you
okay.
measure someone's happiness? Like,
Uh, so so like here's we can't. So like what I'm saying. So like um when I say when you said measure. No,
so,
okay. So my
so for
point is more
instance,
so
like
yeah.
if I commit an aggression against you, I could figure
Mhm.
out whether or not I've committed an aggression or not committed an aggression on you. Sometimes it may be hazy to figure it out because of certain circumstances. But with
Yeah.
you, um, you think it's okay to commit an aggression based on certain circumstances, based on whether or not somebody is happier or not happier. But you can't tell whether or not somebody is happier or not happier.
Well, we can't tell 100%. What I'm telling you is that we can abduct from evidence,
Yeah,
and
but
like that's kind of this.
that to me is not
What?
enough. That to me is not enough to justify committing an aggression simply because you think someone's you're saying you're justify committing aggression against somebody because you think someone's going to be happier from that action. And that to me
Well,
is
okay,
very
okay.
dangerous because then you could justify, like I said earlier, any immoral act.
Well, I mean, when you say immoral, you're necessarily presupposing a different moral system, right? But
Well,
anyways, like
any
what
action, whether it's what you know what I mean. Any you could permit any act.
you, yeah, sure. But like I would just say that like in the cases where those would be justified, I'd say yeah, they would be justified. Like in the
No,
cases
I
where,
understand. That's why I
yeah,
took out the word moral and I said act.
sure,
So
okay.
you could
But
justify any act, basically, with your worldview.
Sure. Okay, yeah. But what I'm saying is like, okay, so the criticism that you kind of tried to point to me at first was like the haziness thing, where it's like, yeah, we can't like 100% know when something is gonna produce the best outcomes. But what I'm saying is that like we can't really 100% know like anything either. Like for example, you can say that you know when something is like aggression or not, but like you don't necessarily know that either, right? Like it could be the case that it could always be the case that you're wrong, right, on anything.
Yes, but
Yeah.
yeah, but to me, it's like just because there are situations that it's not always easy to determine whether or not somebody aggress or not aggress doesn't mean that
Yeah.
they either aggress or didn't aggress. There's always a situation. It's always either you have aggress or you haven't aggress. And if the
Sure.
person does aggress, they are wrong. Whereas in your
Okay, sure.
situation, there is no deontological standard. You know.
No. Okay, let me explain that. So like okay. So what you said is that like yeah, there in every case, even if you can't determine whether they've aggressed or not, it is still there's still a truth value to like whether or not they aggressed or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in ethic, I'm saying that like yeah, there are going to be cases, a lot of cases where I can't like 100% determine what produces the best outcome, but there's still a truth value to what produces the best outcome. Like even if I can't like
Yeah,
100%
but
know it.
there's no objective metric to be like this is the best outcome. It's based on your what you think is the best outcome.
Well, I guess that kind of gets into like whether or not you think like ethics are like objective or subjective. I'm kind of still lean more towards I don't really think there's like objectivity to ethics. Like I don't know, like
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah,
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 I just think that's a little bit dangerous because, like I said, you could justify pretty much anything, any immoral act, or not immoral act, but any act. In my system, there is some haziness. It's not always is as easy to figure out whether somebody is commits an aggression or not committing aggression. There's always going to be some situation where it's not always it's a little bit hazy, but we're always going to say that it's wrong to commit an aggression, no matter what.
well, sure, but I'm always gonna say that it's wrong to like commit an act that would make things like make people less happy or make things worse. That's gonna be my line.
Hmm. Yeah, but then
And
you could justify pretty much any act with that worldview.
well, sure, okay, well, yeah, I mean, like in
You
certain
can't
situations,
justify every act with my worldview.
well, in your worldview, the difference is that like I could give an example of something, and then like you would like that something bad could be happening, and you would say that you have no obligation to stop it.
Well, it depends on whether you consider that to be bad.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of like the entire thing of this
Yeah, so
discussion, right?
could you
Like,
want to give an
yeah.
example?
Well, so like I mentioned, right? Like stealing a penny to like save the world, you would say
Hmm.
that's immoral.
Yeah,
I would consider that
it would
bad.
be immoral to steal the penny. It would also be immoral to destroy the world.
Sure, but like if the only way to
But
save
you
the
would
world
say it would
would
be
be to
moral
steal
to
the
steal
penny.
the penny, and it would be immoral to destroy the world.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, okay. So no. I would say that it would be moral to steal the penny because it would save the world.
Well, it doesn't change what I just said. You think it's immoral to. I mean, you think it's
No,
moral
but
to take the penny. Sorry, you think it's moral to
yeah,
take the penny because you want to save the world because you think it's moral to keep the world going.
yeah. It's due to the context, right? Because like, so like, I wouldn't say that like in like any other situation, like for example, like like if you could like steal like a penny from like a homeless person, I think that would be immoral. Like obviously,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I
I
don't think you should
understand
in
that.
that case. Yeah.
No, yeah, I understand that. But the thing is, like I said earlier, is if I could give you a situation where I could convince you enough that, like I said earlier, that of any act you would say it's okay. Any act, like
Yeah. Yeah. So like you could give me like a hypothetical situation where you could like presuppose that like it would produce the best outcome, and then I would say that yeah, the action which produces the best outcome would be the one you should take, even if it involves like a certain action. Yeah, sure. Um, yeah,
hmm. So then, to me, you don't have any solid like this is right, this is wrong.
I do though. Like the solid right or wrong is that like
So, but you
whatever
just
produces the best
said okay.
outcome
So
is right.
if I were to tell you is rape wrong, you couldn't really tell me whether it's rape right or wrong. You could only tell
I could
me
say
based on the circumstance.
I could say it's wrong in most cases, and it's
Yeah,
probably
you're
gonna and
saying
like
it's wrong based on the circumstance.
yeah.
You can never tell me whether rape is wrong.
I mean, I could never say like it's 100% wrong, but yeah, if you give me a situation, I could analyze it and tell you whether it's right or wrong. Yeah,
based on the circumstances.
yeah.
Yeah, that's. I feel like that's very problematic. That's your it because who do we allow to make these decisions? Who's the one that's to determine whether this thing is the best outcome? That person way say that's outcome. I think leaving that in the hands of people, I think is extremely problematic.
Well, I mean, like, I don't know what you mean by that because, like, I'm just telling you, like, my
Because
perspective. Yeah.
people are irrational. People don't always know what the best outcome is for every situation. So, if you feel like it's justified to do something because you think it has a better outcome, people who don't think things through are going to make a whole bunch of decisions on other people's behalf because they think it's a better outcome, despite that.
Well,
And,
sure,
I don't think that's a good way to have our moral system. It's very
well, sure. So,
problematic.
I mean, well, what? Okay, so like your argument is just that like so other people might like take like a different interpretation of what is like a good outcome versus what is a bad outcome, and therefore it's like, I mean, like, well, sure, but I think that kind of applies to both of our systems, right? Like even in a system that follows kind of your
No.
ethic, people could
If they
interpret
followed
it
my
differently.
ethic, there would be no justification for rape. You can never justify rape through my ethic.
Well, okay, no, but that's a different claim, right? Because like I would say that like under my ethic, yeah, there are situations where it could be
Yeah, and you
justified.
would agree that you could never justify rape through my ethic.
Well, you could. Well, I mean, like, yeah, you couldn't justify like committing the act, but you wouldn't like you could have
You
like
can't.
you
It
wouldn't be
would always
obligated
be
to.
wrong. It would always be wrong
Sure, but
under
yeah,
our
but
ethic. Yeah.
you wouldn't have any obligation to stop like rape if it was happening. Like,
No.
if
Yes, but that's separate. That's like saying, oh, I see somebody robbing a bank over there. I may think it's wrong, but I don't have a moral obligation to stop them. Like you don't have a moral obligation to stop anyone from doing anything. But that's separate from whether or not it's wrong or right for that thing to happen.
oh, I mean, I think that like I think that stopping like immoral acts would be right, which is, yeah, I
I
guess
mean,
it's
you could think
different.
that it's right, but you don't have you're not
Yeah.
obligated.
Well, I mean, I would say that like if I think that it's right, then I would say that necessarily by being right, you should do the right action. You're obligated to do it.
So if there is 5 children and they both need an organ, and they all 5 of them need an organ and they can get that organ from you, you would say it would be morally justified to force that person down and take their organs from them to give to those 5 children because that would be it would it'd be moral otherwise.
Yeah, so okay, so this is the organ example. So yeah, on that example, so there are kind of two ways we can go about it. So like if we're talking about like in a vacuum with no other like factors to consider besides just I have to give like an organ to save 5 children and like nothing else is involved, like then yeah, I could say that yeah, like you'd be obligated to. But I don't think that like in the current system, I wouldn't advocate for that. Like people should be like like we should be like forcing people to give out their organs.
Hmm. So
Yes.
yeah, like I said, you don't really have a consistent like you can't be like consistently say this is wrong, this is right.
Well, I mean, I think I have a consistent line. I'm just like it just changed. Like it's just my
Well,
evaluation
that
of
if
the
it
situation.
changes based on the situation, it's not really consistent.
Well, I mean,
It's
it is.
it's
Well,
consistent in the fact. Listen, I'll say this. I'll give you this. It's consistent in the
yeah,
fact that you're saying that you think that we should change. We should go with the best outcome that provides the most happiness. You think that you're
yeah,
consistent in that. But
yeah,
what I'm saying is that you're not really consistent in the fact that like let's say there's a situation somebody raped the other person, right? You
yeah.
wouldn't automatically say that that is wrong. If I saw somebody rape another person, I would automatically be like that is wrong no matter the situation. But you wouldn't say that. You would say, okay, well, what's the circumstances surrounding that rape? And then based on the information, whether or not you think it's a better situation or better, then you would make your decision. That's what I'm saying. It's not consistent on every issue.
Well, yeah. It's not okay. So so yeah. You're saying that like yeah, sure. It's not in the sense of like I'm not saying that like something is 100% wrong every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, like it changes based on like the evidence we have and like the circumstances we have. But I don't know. I just feel that's kind of like how we, in general, how humans kind of like evaluate things. Like
Yeah, but
things
I don't think
change
that's
based
how
on
we
context.
ought to value things. You know, I don't think it's right to rape any person under any circumstance. It's not okay.
Sure. I mean, like, so I think, well, yeah. Well, again, yeah, again, so like, yeah, I think that rape is like an immoral act, but I think I'm just saying that it can be justified in certain situations, like if it leads to a greater good.
Yeah, I just don't think so. I can't think of any circumstance where I would say that it's okay to rape someone.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I mean, like, yeah, we obviously have like a moral disagreement on that.
Yeah,
I guess like,
but you do agree that like based on the circumstances, you're not really you don't have a consistent answer. Is okay, this is wrong, this is right. It really just depends on whether or not it makes you happier, or whether or
yeah.
not.
So
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay,
You know what I'm
so
saying?
as you said, yeah, but yeah, like as you kind of like clarified before, like, yeah, my consistency is based on like whatever produces the best outcome is good,
Hmm.
whatever produces the least bad, the worst outcome is bad, and like, yeah, obviously it's gonna what produces the best outcome and what produces the worst outcome is gonna change based on the circumstance.
Hmm.
But like, I will always
But
follow consistently by the
that's
rule.
not how it works with me. Rape will always
Yeah.
be wrong. Murder will always be wrong. Stealing will
Yeah.
always be wrong for me.
Okay. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Sure. That's kind of like a foundational ethical disagreement.
Yep.
Okay. So beyond that, I have one more thing that
Hmm.
maybe we can get into, and then like after that, I'm out of ideas. So
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. That's fine.
sure. So okay. So like, when it comes to property ownership, I want this is kind of like an interesting case. So do you think that people are like, oh, do you okay? What makes someone the same person over time?
What do you mean by that?
So presumably that you would think that you right now and you 10 minutes ago were the same person,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
What makes you the same person that you were 10 minutes ago?
Uh, I guess the fact that I'm still here, right?
The fact that you're
That
still here, what does
or
that
that
mean?
I'm not sure how to answer that question.
You're not sure?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that question. I guess how do I know that I'm the same person that I was 10 minutes ago? Is that what you're
Yeah.
asking?
Yeah.
Um, well, it's the only thing that I could know. Like it's based on my perception of the world.
Okay. So would you say that you at 5 years old is the same person as you at your current age? Or do you think that
Well,
like
we're the same person as it depends on what you mean by same person, you know? As
yeah,
like
that's kind of what I'm asking you. Is like what do you think makes you
yeah,
the
I
same
guess
person?
in the sense of like, you know, you're yeah, I guess you it's kind of a hard question. Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
I would say generally yes, but you know, people could make the argument, oh well, every cell in your body has been replaced,
Yeah.
everything, uh, you know, or that some people this, some people that. I guess I can't really give you a solid answer to that. I guess I would have to say that, yeah, you are. To be consistent, for it to make sense, I would have to say that you are the same person. Um, but I guess there isn't no 100% way to prove one way or the other. I guess we can only assume it based on the information.
Okay. Yeah, so okay. So the reason I asked that question is because like so I actually like disagree. Like I actually don't think that there's like anything that makes the same one person the same person over time.
Hmm.
And I think the reason that what this has to do with like kind of your ethics is that like when it comes to property, um you don't believe that like a different person can own something unless they've been given consent by like the current owner, right?
I think I know where you're going with this. Are you trying to say that because you accepted something a while ago, and a while ago you're not the same person as you were before, so therefore you would be stealing from that prior person?
Yeah, so I'm kind of saying that like so what I'm
Oh,
trying to
so let's
kind
say
of
if that
argue.
was true. Let's say if that
Yeah.
was true, that prior person is no longer around, right?
Yeah. So
Okay, so then
yeah.
if their property would then be go into the commons, right? Essentially, and then in the person who possesses it would then be the person who owns it. So even it, you know, so it would basically transfer to the person who is currently inhabiting that body.
That body or that property?
Well, the body and property.
Wait. Uh,
Well, I
wait.
don't.
So
Well,
what do you?
I'm not accepting what you're saying is true. I do think people are the same person through their whole life. But let's say that they were. The person who isn't there anymore would be considered to be dead, and the person who inhabits their body after that would be, well, basically taking over their body and their property.
Well, but you would agree that like even the body isn't the same body over time, right?
Yeah, but their body is replacing its cells, right? And then that body,
Yeah.
it's so yeah, that doesn't hold up for me because in the end of the day, you're transferring that title to your future person.
Yeah, and so the reason I kind of view this as like kind of like a sort of like a
But
thing
like
that
I'm
kind of
just going off of your hypotheticals. Let's say it was true. I don't think that is true, but let's say it was true. I would say to resolve that, it would be basically the person who was there before is now transferring the title to the person who is inhabiting their body after, which is the same person to me.
um
So, for instance,
okay.
let's say like if your grandmother dies, right? Well, who does that stuff go to? Well, it goes to you because you're her child. They're her descendant. So it's basically the same way. They can't
Well,
dispute you doing anything with that property if they're no longer dead, because if they're dead, they no longer own it.
I mean, okay, well that gets into kind of some interesting things, but like because like, but you would agree that like, let's say that your grandma didn't consent to giving it to you, but wanted to give it to another person. You think that it
Oh,
should go
if
to the
she
other
didn't
person, right?
consent, well then no. Well then it wouldn't go to you. If she wanted to give it to someone else, it would go to whomever she wants to give it to, or or it would just go into common if she wanted that, like whatever she wants to do it to it. But let's say if I haven't expressed that I don't want my future self to not have this, then we can only assume that you are giving it to your future self, right?
Wait, so you think that like, you think that you have to express that you don't consent to something?
Well, you can't know. Nah, you
But you
can't
don't.
know
But don't
if
you
they
think you
don't.
have? But don't you think you have to express consent, not express not consent?
If you're dead, you can't express not consent or not consent because you're not alive anymore.
Yeah, yeah. But what I'm saying is like, so like for example, like wouldn't you think it's like under your worldview, wouldn't you say that like the grandmother would have to like write a will saying that yes, I want to give the property to you for you to conclude that yes, it does belong to the child. Otherwise, you can't really know that she consented to that, right?
Um, well, it's presumed that by having that child, uh, generally, that's how it works.
Okay, so so you're just making like an assumption like automatically that it must be like the child's
Hmm.
once the person passes away.
Well, the thing is, yeah, because like why else have that child? Unless they like if the whole reason to have a child is so that you could pass on your legacy to them. And
But
unless you've expressly said I don't want to pass my legacy onto that child, it can only be assumed that there's no other person that could take that thing.
I mean, that seems like a weird statement to me. So you think the only reason to have a child is to pass on your property to them? You don't think that like
Well, it's
there's
not
any
the
other reason in the
only
world?
reason, but generally that's the
Like
main reason why people have children. People have children so
I
that they could move, so that they can move on with their life. They could die, and then they could live through their children, basically.
I don't even know if I agree with that. I think people have children just because it's like fulfilling for them to have like kids,
Yeah, but
right?
the
Like
reason why that's fulfilling is because they want to pass their legacy on to other people. They're not people don't just have
well,
kids just to like throw them on the street.
sure. Well, yeah, legacy, but like that doesn't necessarily mean property, right?
Well, but it's assumed. I get what you're saying, but in the end of the
Yeah.
day, I'm not in that situation, if the parent doesn't say that they don't want their kids not to have it, no one else could have a claim to that other than their descendants.
Well, but why wouldn't it just go automatically be like just unowned, and then hence anybody else could just walk up to it and own it, right? Like why would it necessarily have to go to the child?
Well, it doesn't
Because it
necessarily have
doesn't.
to go to the child. If
Yeah,
yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to go to the child. But if you
yeah, because
could,
it doesn't seem to like follow from your
but
ethics,
the thing
your
is,
aspect.
right?
Yeah,
What you're talking about is a person from an earlier time, right? And
yeah.
then they're different. You're passing on that body onto that other person, right?
Well, I mean, like again, like it's you're well, I don't think it's the same body. Like you haven't given me an argument for why it would be the same.
Well, your cells don't just die and then the other one comes into place. They die one by one and then they replace each other.
Sure, but like eventually it's
So
going to be
it's
completely
not as
replaced, right?
one person then boom the other person. It's a slow transition.
Yeah, but eventually it's like
Okay, so then you
it's
could
going to be
assume.
different, right?
Okay, so then if the person who is transferring their body to the other person doesn't stop that by shooting themselves, then you can assume that they are consensually doing so.
What do you mean?
If the person doesn't stop the process and isn't saying that they don't want their body to get older, then you could assume that they want it, right?
Well, I mean, like, if the person doesn't want to become older, then they want it.
If you don't want to become older, you could just shoot yourself, right?
Sure.
Okay, so then you're consenting to becoming older.
Yeah, sure. You're consenting to like become a different person, but I
Yes,
think you.
and then
that
so
means you
by doing
consent
that,
to-
you're consenting to giving your body and your property to that other person, even if that was true, right?
Well, but it would no longer be your body.
Unless
it
you
would be a different person.
expressly listen to me. If you choose not to be an older person, you could shoot yourself, right?
Sure. If you choose not to be a different person, yeah.
If you could choose not to be a different person, right?
Yeah, you.
Okay,
could,
so that if you turn into that different person and you could choose otherwise and you don't choose to, we could assume that you choose to be that other person, right?
I don't.
Are
know that I
actions
agree with that,
purposeful, yes or no?
I mean, like, well, okay, but here's the thing, right? You're saying that like if you
Are actions purposeful?
are actions purposeful. What do you mean by purposeful?
Do people have purpose into their actions? Like, do people do things for no reason?
Probably not.
Okay, so the actions are purposeful.
Sure, but okay.
Okay, so then if you are allowing a process to happen, that means that you are not consenting to that action being happening, right? So, for instance, if you are, let's say I'm standing here. Let's say I'm standing here and you pat my head, right?
Yeah.
And I haven't told you to stop, right? Are you violating my rights?
Maybe not. Wait, hold on. Wait, that's a crazy statement because like if I could say that like if someone's being raped and the person being raped doesn't say to, like stop it, do you think they're consenting to it?
Well, the thing is, it's a little bit different. Well, you can't touch a person without their consent, right? Generally, right? But if the person is allowing you to do it, you can assume that that person is allowing you to do it, right?
I mean, I don't.
So, for instance, if a girl is butt naked in your bedroom and she has her ass up and she says, "Come here, let's have sex," you can only assume that she wants to have sex with you, right?
Okay, well, but that's kind of like an explicit like example.
Okay, so
consent,
if
right?
you aren't stopping yourself, if you have the option to kill yourself, then you are choosing to become older, right?
Wait, hold on. That's a completely different thing because like that's like so like in the example of like
you don't choose to become older.
Okay, no, hold on. I just want to like clarify that. So like, if you're saying that, like if you don't make an active effort to like stop an action, you think that therefore you're consenting to the action.
No, not necessarily, but it could be implied. It could be implied, right?
It could be, but like even you admit that that's not necessarily the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
but if you don't want that action to happen, and there's an option in which you could choose for that thing to not happen.
Yeah,
the person isn't expressing that they don't want it to happen. You can imply that that person does want it to happen.
I mean, like the thing is, like, okay, but like,
come on, literally, dude, come on, seriously. Use your head.
Hold on, hold on, because here's an example, right? Like, if I didn't want to be, like, if someone didn't want to be raped, they could also shoot themselves, right? Do you think that because they didn't shoot themselves, that therefore they?
No. I'm not saying that. The thing is, you're not okay. If I tell you that I don't want to be raped, right? How do you know when you're raping somebody?
If they haven't given you consent, then
okay. So if they haven't told you anything and they're allowing you to do it, and they haven't told you no, then you could assume that you're not violating their consent, right?
No, this is a problem with rape.
So so every time you touch a girl, you ask her for consent. Hey, can I touch you here? Hey, can I touch you here? Hey, can I touch you here?
Okay, hold on. No.
Yes or no?
So no.
Okay.
Like, what I'm saying
so then when a girl, right, is allowing you to touch her and you progress, more than what you normally do, you're not raping her, right?
Probably not. No. Like,
okay,
I would
so
assume, like,
okay, so then you're assuming it's implied that you're not raping her, because at any moment she could say, "Don't touch me."
Yeah.
Okay, so if I am choosing to become older and I can shoot myself, and there are many ways in which I could choose not to be older, then and I haven't expressly said that I don't want to become older, then you could assume that I don't have no problem with becoming older.
No, I disagree with that because
Okay.
like I don't think it's a necessary implication because
Yeah, it's
I
implied. It's obviously implied.
no, because there are cases where you would agree, well, just because you don't express like that you don't want it to happen or that you don't take an alternative action to make it not happen, you would still agree that it's not consensual, right? So like in the case of the rape, for
If the
example, even if they
if the
don't.
person doesn't consent to it, right? But if the
Sure,
person, but how could
like
you
your
know? But wait. The question is, how could you know if a person consents or not consents if they don't tell you?
sure, okay, so like you could okay,
Or
but here's the thing is that like but here's the thing is that
that's
like
like saying, oh, you can never touch anyone, you can never look at anyone, you can never do anything with another person's private property unless they, uh,
no. Okay, wait. I need some time to explain this. Okay, so like, you can. I'm not saying that you can't like ever infer that like you've been given consent to certain actions, but I'm saying
mhm.
that like in the case of like the fact that you're bringing up an example where like because they haven't shot themselves, therefore they consent to being older. I don't think that's
No, I'm
necessarily
not
the
saying
case.
therefore they consent. I'm saying you can imply that you can assume that they have consented to that action.
That's the same thing. You're saying that you said that they didn't. That you said that they consent, right? What?
Well,
What?
you could assume that they consented to that action. Yeah.
Okay,
I
but
mean,
you
why?
said
Why?
you.
What can you? Would it be ridiculous for you not to to assume that? So,
I
for
think that
instance,
it would be.
if you and your girlfriend are in a bed and you guys are having sex, and she says she hasn't told you I don't want to have sex. In fact, she's on top of you and
No, no,
riding
no, no,
you.
no, 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 no,
You
no.
could imply
Wait.
that she enjoyed that sex
No,
and she wanted that sex, right?
no. That's a different example because what you're trying to argue with me right now is that like because you haven't literally shot yourself, therefore you consent. That seems
I
kind of wild
never.
to me.
Whoa, 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 whoa,
Like
whoa, 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 whoa. Listen to me. I never said
that,
that. I said
that's what you
it's a.
said. That's it.
Well, if I said
Okay.
that, then let me rephrase. I'm saying
Okay. Sure.
that
Fine.
it's
Yeah.
implied that the person consented to it. You can't know that that person didn't
No,
consent to it.
hold on. Wait. Hold on. You said that you didn't say you could that they consent, but then you're saying that they imply that they consent. You're saying they consented because they didn't shoot themselves. What do you like? What? I'm
No, I'm
confused.
saying that there's no way that you could prove that they didn't consent to that.
So, so do you think you have to prove that they didn't? Okay.
Well, yeah, if
But
you're making a if you're making an accusation, you have to prove that that person committed a wrong act. If you feel like
no,
my
no, no, no,
older
no, no,
listen to me, if
no,
you
no,
feel
no,
like my
no.
older self has stolen from my younger self, you have to give me evidence, right, that I committed that aggression. If not, then you can't make that claim.
Well, okay, no, okay, hold on. But if we're in a property dispute, and then like two people like one person saying like, oh, you gave me this property, and then like, you say, that person said like, oh, you,
You would have to
then the
give
other person
evidence.
who like, that yeah, you have to give evidence that the person who's saying that you gave me this property has to give evidence that they consented. The other person cannot say that you have to give me evidence that you didn't consent. That's ridiculous.
No, I get what you're saying, but
Yeah.
if the person who is possessing the current good is always going to be the assumed to be the person who owns the good, and if you don't have any evidence that that person didn't consent to that action, well then you can't really take that from that other person. You don't have any proof one way or the other.
That's what Yeah,
So
but okay.
levying so in order for you to prove that an older person, a person older who is an older self stole from the younger self, you would have to give evidence that that younger self didn't consent to that action.
What? Wait, hold on. Why wouldn't you have to give evidence that the person did consent? That
Okay,
makes no
so
sense. Why do you have to give evidence that they didn't?
if I have a beanie baby in my hand, right?
Okay.
The possessor is going to be assumed to be the owner unless you have evidence that they stole it. For instance, if I saw that you stole something, right? I can't just take it from you. I have to give evidence that the person who you stole it from did not consent to you giving it to them. If I don't have any evidence, then I'm making accusations without any evidence.
Okay, hold on. Um. Okay. So, but no. Okay, wait, hold on. So if okay, but like here's the thing: is
If
that
you
like
think your older
are
self, let me explain it to you. If you think your older self stole from your younger self, you would have to show me evidence that your younger self did not consent to giving you, your older self, the property in which you have. If not, then that accusation doesn't make any sense. It's like if I go up to a person, I'd be like, that person raped that other person. You think he raped that other person? Well, where's your evidence? Oh well, he never not consent. He never said that he could. He did this. Well, you have to show evidence.
what do you have to show evidence of that he consented?
Well, that he consented, or that the other person took it without the person's consent.
Right. So you have to show evidence that they consented, not that they didn't consent.
Well, both. You have to show one way or the other.
Okay.
You have to show that they didn't consent to that action, or that that other person took it without that person's consent.
Hold up, but like you do understand you can't prove a negative, right? You can't prove that someone didn't do something, right?
Yeah, but you can prove somebody did do something. If you're accusing somebody of stealing something from a prior person, you have to show evidence of that, right?
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah. You can prove that they did consent, but you can't prove that they didn't consent because you can't.
Exactly. So therefore, you cannot prove that an older person stole from their younger self.
Wait, what do you mean? Wait. You're changing the argument now because but then you have to prove that they did consent, not that they didn't consent.
Listen to me. If you make an if I say you stole from me, you stole from this guy, you stole from this person, and you say, okay, what is your evidence? What do I need to give you?
Okay.
What do I need to give you?
Okay, wait. Let me. Okay, so you're saying
if you make an accusation, if I make an accusation towards you, saying that you stole from another person, right?
Okay.
What's the first thing that they're gonna ask me?
I have to prove. You have to provide evidence that they consented, that they did consent, right?
You would have to provide evidence that they either consented or the other person took it without their consent. Can you prove that?
No. If you can't provide evidence that they did consent, then that would be
but hold on. You're saying that you took by an older person took a thing from their younger self without their consent, right?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so you need to prove that, right?
Sure. Okay, but
if you make an accusation, you have to prove that, right?
Hold on. Yeah,
how do you prove that?
Hold on. Your argument is that because they didn't shoot themselves, therefore they consented.
No. Listen to my argument. Listen to my argument. No. You're changing the argument. Listen to me. If you're accusing somebody, this person A, from stealing from person B, right? What's the first thing that they're going to ask you for?
You need evidence that they consented, right?
Yeah. Okay. So, do you have that evidence that you stole from your younger self?
Do I have evidence?
Yeah. What evidence? How do you prove that? How do you prove that you stole from your younger self?
How do I prove that they stole? I mean, I would just have to say that. Well, hold on. To prove that they stole, I would just have to say that I never gave consent. There's no evidence of consent, right?
You would have to prove that that person took it without that other person's consent.
Okay. Wait, hold on. If you can't prove that there's any consent, then isn't that just proof that they didn't consent?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, sure, but you don't think it's evidence in favor of if you can't prove that they consented, is that evidence of that they didn't?
No, not necessarily, because let's say me and you are in a bedroom and I consent to having sex with you, right? But then later I say I didn't consent to it, right? That I could lie.
You could lie, okay.
Mm-hmm. But it is possible for, you have to prove that you violated that person's consent. You can't just make an accusation against another person. You have to give evidence for it. If you believe that you stole from somebody believes that they stole something from their younger self, you have to give evidence for that.
What evidence do they need to give?
I don't know. You would have to give me that. That's what I'm asking you. How could you prove that you stole from your younger self?
I mean, okay, but hold on. But
it's impossible. It's literally impossible.
Okay, but hold on. No, hold on. We're kind of changing the argument here again because I'm.
You're making an accusation against another person that they stole from another person.
Wait. Hold on. This. Okay, we're getting to a different thing of how do we determine? Because that's not relevant to the argument.
It is relevant to the argument. It is because you're saying that you're stealing from your younger self. You said that you're stealing from your younger self. Did you not say that?
Hold on. Let me. Okay.
Yes.
Hold on. Let me finish. What I am saying is that so would you agree or disagree that if someone takes something from another person without getting their consent,
that would be theft? Yes, that would be theft.
That would be theft.
Okay. But then if you make an accusation against another person saying that you stole from this person, you have to prove that that person did it. It isn't just simply known that that person did it. You have to prove it, right?
Okay, no, but I'm giving. Okay, no, hold on. I'm giving you a hypothetical where, like, let's say that we just know that they had no intent of consent.
If you could prove that your
I'm not
younger
talking about
self,
proof.
listen to me. If I'm extending an olive branch to you. If you could
Okay.
prove that your younger self didn't consent to your older self, didn't want you to inhabit the property that you hug, and you could also prove that your older self is a different person from your younger self. I'm not sure if that's even possible. Well, then, yeah, I would maybe grant you that. But both of those things are impossible to answer. You do know that, right?
But no. But here's the thing: is that, like, the only way that I could prove to you that there's no consent is by showing that there's no evidence of consent.
Wait, so if you have sex with a girl, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have evidence that she consented, you're automatically a rapist, even if she did?
I mean, well, hold on. There's two different arguments going on. If we know for a fact that she consented, then you're not a rapist.
Listen to me. You're saying you're stealing from another. When you have your property of your younger self, you're taking something from your younger self, right? You're stealing.
Yes.
Okay, if you make an accusation, you have to prove that accusation, right?
Okay.
How do you prove that you've stolen from your younger self?
Okay, hold on. So, like, this isn't relevant because, like,
it is relevant. It's relevant it is relevant.
Hold on. Let me explain. Okay, because you're doing two different things here, right? It's like, so one is about proof. We're not talking about proof. I'm giving you an example where we know that there was no.
Yeah, I've already answered. Consent. I've answered the question. If you know that that person didn't consent, and then let's say, and I were to assume that it is true that your older self is different from your older self, then I would say yes, that is theft. But what I'm saying is that's impossible to prove.
Well, okay, sure, but
that's literally impossible to prove.
I mean, that also applies to, like, rape cases. You know that, right? Like, we can't prove 100% that someone did or didn't consent ever, right?
Yeah, but we have circumstantial evidence at which you could use to prove that.
Sure.
Right?
Okay. But
proving, hold on. You're talking about a situation where it's hard to prove something. And then there's another situation where it's impossible to prove something. It's not the same.
Hold on. It's also impossible to prove consent because you're not in.
It's possible to prove consent.
No, you're not in a person's head. You can't.
Hold on. Let's say me and you are about to have sex, and I make you sign a form, right? And it says I consent to the sexual act, right? That would be evidence, and that you signed it. Right?
That would be evidence, but that wouldn't be 100%.
Okay, so then it is okay. So then you can show evidence that you raped somebody.
What do you mean?
You can show evidence that you did rape somebody, that somebody did not consent to something. It is possible to prove that.
It is possible to prove that you didn't rape somebody?
That you didn't consent to an action.
It is possible to prove that you didn't consent to an action. I mean, like...
Yes or no?
Like,
yes or no?
The
answer is obviously yes. The answer is obviously yes.
You need to let me actually explain the answer. Yeah, it's possible to get evidence.
Okay, it is impossible. Consent. Okay, yes, it is. Okay, it is impossible to prove that your younger self didn't consent to you getting to your older self. It's also impossible to know that your younger self is not your older self.
I asked you for an argument for what makes you the same person over time. You can give me one, right?
Yeah, but you don't know that you're. Do you think it's so? Because it doesn't make sense. You're still the same person. You still have the same consciousness.
What makes it the same consciousness?
Well, because it's the same.
You can't give me an answer to that.
Yeah, but you can't tell me how it's a different person. And even if it was a different person, different person, you can't prove that other older person stole from that younger person. Can you? It's impossible.
Okay,
right?
Hold on. I'm saying
no. Answer the question. Let's stop. Answer the question.
Yep. Answer which question?
It's impossible. Even if what you're saying is true, it's impossible to prove that older person stole from that younger person, right?
It's impossible to know 100% anything. Yeah.
No, it's not. No. It's not impossible to know 100% of anything. It's impossible to prove. It's impossible to prove that older person stole from that younger person.
It's impossible to prove that Okay, hold on. So it's impossible.
Okay, but it is possible. It is possible to prove rape.
Okay, what is your definition of proof?
Having evidence.
Okay, so you can. Okay, hold on. Okay, so if you have evidence of something, okay, so that's proof, right? So do you think you need to prove a negative? Do you think I need to prove that God doesn't exist or that He does
No,
exist?
no, no. I'm not telling you to prove a negative. You're the one making the
You
claim. If you're making a claim that
no, no,
somebody
no,
stole
yeah,
something, stop it. You're making a claim that somebody stole
yeah,
something from someone else, yes?
yeah,
You're
but
making a
okay,
claim that your
but
older self stole from your younger self, yes?
okay, hold on,
Yes or
but
no?
what stealing
Yes or
means? Oh,
no?
yes, hold on.
Yes or
Can I
no?
explain?
No.
Stop
I want
interrupting
yes
me.
or
Okay,
no.
what? Wait, can, okay, a conversation needs to happen between two people. I need to actually be able to explain my position here. So yes, you are stealing, but
You're
to
making
prove
an
that you're asking me to
accusation,
give,
right?
yeah, hold
Okay,
on. But
so
to prove
then
you're
if
asking me
you're
to give it
making an
to prove that they didn't
accusation,
consent, but
you need to prove
I
it,
don't know how you
right?
can prove that you don't consent because that's proving a negative.
You
How can
need
you prove that
listen, you're
someone
not
didn't consent
proving a
by proving a
negative. If
negative?
you're
How can you
making
prove a
an
negative? You are
accusation,
proving a negative because you're saying that you have to prove that you didn't consent. Proving that you
are
didn't
you
consent means
making
that
an
you can prove a negative.
accusation? Yes or no?
You're
You're
making an
making
accusation
an
yourself. You're
accusation,
asking for
yes. So
evidence that
you
they
need
didn't
to
consent. But how
prove
do you
that
prove that they didn't
accusation to be
consent? You have to prove
true,
that they,
right?
yeah, and so
If you don't have
evidence
evidence,
to
then
show
that
that
you
you
can't
decided.
prove it to be truth, right?
If I don't have evidence, like, sure,
Okay, so
but
therefore we can only assume
hold on, you're
that the person who is possessing it is the owner. Unless you have evidence
no.
that that person stole it from another person.
Okay, hold on. So like, okay, hold on. So like, if I leave my house and someone else like comes and steals it and they're like they're possessing it at the moment, but they wouldn't be the owner, right?
No, because and you could easily prove that you are the owner by showing the deed. If so, say somebody inhabits your house and they say this is my house now. Hey, that's not my house. I have the deed right here. If somebody were to contest that, you could just simply show I have the deed right here. But you see, that's
Sure. Okay.
evidence. You could show evidence that you prove that you own that thing. So if somebody were to make an accusation
Yeah,
against
yeah, yeah.
you, you can be like, you could prove that they're not doing it. In this situation, you're making an accusation. You're making an accusation that your older self stole from your younger self, right?
I'm making is that
You're
I'm
making an
making the claim
accusation
that
that your older self stole from your younger self.
I'm making the claim that the younger person didn't consent.
No, 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 no.
Didn't consent.
Okay, so you're making an
I'm making the
accusation.
claim.
Yeah, if that
I'm
person
making the
didn't
accusation that
consent,
the
if the
younger person
younger
didn't
person didn't
consent.
consent,
Yes.
and that other person
Yes.
takes it without their consent, you're making an accusation that that other person stole from the young person, right?
Yeah.
And in order to prove that that older person stole from that younger person, what do you need?
To prove that they stole, you would need. I mean, you would need to prove that they didn't consent. Well, hold
Okay.
on. No.
There.
You would.
Oh, wait. Say that
No.
again.
Hold on. You would. Okay. Hold on. You don't because you can't prove that they didn't consent. You can't prove a
Exactly. So
negative.
you need. Okay. So when you make an accusation and you don't have evidence for it, then the person who is possessing it is going to be assumed to be the owner, right?
Hold on, but making an assumption doesn't mean that it's correct, right?
No, but the listen to me. You can't take something from somebody simply because you think they took it from another person. You have to have evidence, right?
I mean, okay, but you are putting the burden of evidence on the person
On
only
the
on the
person
person
making
who.
the accusation, yes. The people who make accusations need the burden of evidence to prove their claim.
Okay, but the other person would be making the claim that they did consent. They would need to prove that they consented, right?
No, because the person who possesses it is going to be assumed to be the current owner. And if you are making an accusation that that person stole it, you need to bring forth evidence that that person did.
Okay, okay, I think we're getting lost. Okay, but okay, hold on. This okay. What? Okay, but
What
here's the
part of
thing:
this do you
is
not
that like if
understand?
no, no, okay, but we're taking this into a different like conversation. So like, what I'm trying to get at with this whole conversation that we're getting like really lost in is that like, if it is the case that someone is a different person over time, and we can pretty reasonably infer that nobody has the expressed consent in their head
Listen to
that
me.
like the other person.
You say
Wait,
an older person,
can I finish an
you're
argument?
saying
Can
an
I finish an
older
argument?
person
Hold on.
stole from
You
another
keep
person,
interrupting
yes
me.
or no?
You keep interrupting. Hold on. You keep interrupting me. Can I finish an argument
I
first,
know what
please?
you're going to say. I already know your
No, you
argument.
don't. No, you don't. No,
Okay,
you
then
don't.
explain.
Hold
Go
on.
ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So if a person, so like, if we assume that they're a different person over time, which I think the argument is obviously
Hmm.
the case for that, and they and there's no known expressed consent that they gave to like the other person, then like why would you automatically assume that they're the owner?
Because if you're going to accuse somebody of stealing, you have to bring forced evidence.
But it's not about But it's not about accusations. I'm just saying
You
that
are making an accusation. You are making an accusation. You're saying one person stole from another person, right?
Hold on. I'm telling you, I'm giving you the information in the scenario that you know there's no express consent. So how do you evaluate that situation?
You have to give forth evidence that the person did not consent or that person stole it from the other person.
I am telling you, in the situation, there's no express consent. How do you evaluate that situation?
By showing evidence that that person stole it or doesn't own
How would you
it.
do that? How would you do that?
That's up to you. That's up to the accuser.
Wait, so you can't. Wait, hold on.
That's up to the accuser.
Okay, hold on. But you can't evaluate the situation. Your morals can't evaluate the situation.
I
Because
just
I'm
told
telling
you. What do you listen to me?
no.
What do you think I did? Listen to me. If you make an accusation about another person, what do you need to bring?
Hold on, that's not relevant.
Yes, it is relevant. You're making an
haven't answered-
accusation
no,
against
you
your
haven't
older
answered my
self for
question.
stealing from your younger self. Yes or no?
You haven't answered my question.
What
at
is the
all,
question?
Okay.
I
I'm
have.
saying no, you haven't. I'm saying that if it's a different person over time,
Mhm.
and there is no express consent that for giving the ownership to the next person, what is the would you say from that evidence, if that's the only evidence we have, would you say that the other person owns it or not?
Yeah.
That's the only evidence we have.
Are they the current possessor of it?
That the current possessor, yeah, sure.
Do you have evidence that that other person stole it from another other person without their consent?
I don't have evidence. That there's
You
no
don't
consent.
have evidence that that other person took that other thing from that other person without their consent. Yes or no?
No, but that's not.
It is relevant. It is relevant.
Okay, sure. I don't have evidence that they didn't consent. No.
Okay, so then in order for you to prove that that other person stole it from that other person, you need to put forth evidence that that person didn't consent to that action, or that that person took it from that other person without their consent. Those are the two things you need.
Okay.
So if you don't have that, then you cannot take that from that person, because the person who is currently possessing it is going to be assumed to be the owner unless you have evidence that that person stole it.
Okay, so your answer to my question, which is if there's no evidence of consent and the person is a different person,
and there's no evidence that that person stole it.
Sure, and so there's no evidence of consent.
And there's no evidence that they stole it.
And there's no evidence of consent. So you agree that therefore the person who is currently possessing it owns it.
The person can be assumed to own it unless you have evidence that they don't. That's how it works in every situation. You do realize that, right? Like in the United States, in every country, that's how it works.
Well, okay, but here's the difference, though. We're talking about yeah, sure, that's the legal thing, but I'm trying to tell you from your moral position, it doesn't seem to follow from your ethics that this would be how ownership would work.
That is how it is. So it does follow from my ethics. The person who is the possessor of the item is assumed to be the owner unless you have evidence that they stole it. That's how it always works. That's how it works under pretty much any other system. Unless you're a complete anarchist or anarcho-communist.
No, but the thing is that so your ethic is fundamentally based on consent, but now you're saying that you don't actually need to know that they've consented to have ownership. You can just assume that because they possess it, they own it.
Well, if you're making an accusation, yes, you have to prove it.
It's not about accusation. I'm talking about.
If you think somebody stole it, you have to prove it.
That's okay. That's a different thing. That's yeah, sure. But what I'm trying to say is that your ethic is based on consent, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need consent for any action to be valid.
Yeah, if that person who is possessing it took it without took it from another person without their consent, then they would have violated that person's right. But to make an accusation, you need evidence, right?
Okay, sure. But what I'm saying is that if there's no express consent, how do you evaluate the situation?
That's up to the person making the accusation.
So you can't evaluate it.
Yeah, that's up to the person who makes the accusation. If you make an accusation, you have to prove it.
So then your ethic can't evaluate whether or not it's an actual they actually own it or not. You don't have an answer for that.
Listen to me. The person who possesses it, what do you think I'm gonna say?
Owns it.
Yeah, the person who possesses it can be assumed to
own it. Okay, so okay, hold on.
Okay, we can only assume that they own it, right?
No, okay.
Right?
Sure.
Yes. Okay, so then if you want to prove that they don't own it, what do you need?
Hold on. No, this is not relevant. Okay.
It is relevant. It's very relevant.
Can I give you an example?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's an example. Let's say that's someone is in a house. Okay, they own the house.
Yes.
And then let's say that they go away for 5 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So in that meantime, someone else takes the house and possesses it. Now you know for a fact that there was no expressed consent.
Yeah.
Does the person who came and took the house own it?
No.
Okay.
So wait. But if you go up to that person, right, and you say you stole this house from me, right, you're gonna have to show evidence, right?
Hold. That's different. That's
No,
different.
wait.
That's different.
The person, if you go up to that person, they're gonna be assumed to be the owner unless the other person has evidence that they're not the owner. That's how it works in every system.
No, hold on.
They're good. At first, they're gonna be assumed to be the owner.
Stop it, Rabi. Stop. You just made a claim that I just gave you an example that if someone that you know owns it and then leaves, and then someone else comes and possesses it, and there's no explicit consent, you just said that they don't own it. And
well, they're gonna be. Oh, hold on. I said that they're gonna be assumed to be the owner until the person who actually owns it proves that it is theirs.
But no, okay. But I've already told you in the hypothetical that you know that another person owned it, and then another person came and possessed it.
Oh, well, then they wouldn't own it.
Okay, so then in the case of and okay, so then in the case of the other thing,
because they have evidence, they could prove it.
How? No, I'm not.
By showing the deed or the receipt.
That's not relevant.
It is relevant.
Okay, no, I'm not talking. Let's say they don't have a deed, but like I'm just telling you, with the information I've given you, you can evaluate that the person who owned it is the person who is the person who.
Yeah, but you don't have that. You don't have that with a younger person and an older person now, do you?
It's the same example. Hold
on.
No,
you don't have that with a younger person and an older person, right?
What don't I have?
You don't have the evidence.
What evidence is involved in scenario 2 that is in scenario 1?
The first person, the evidence is that the person who bought it would have some sort of deed or receipt or the transfer of title from that thing so that they could prove that that person took that thing without their consent. If you have, in the first scenario, you do not have that.
No, hold on. Okay.
You don't have that.
You're trying to evaluate this like a legal thing. I'm not talking about
this is based on legal. This is natural law.
No. I'm talking about ethics.
This is my ethical view, and this is the natural law.
No, let's say that even if deeds didn't exist, you would still say that the person who owns it is the first person to come upon it, right? The first person to mix their land labor.
Yes.
They don't need a deed, right? Exactly. They don't.
Yeah, but if they need to prove, if somebody's gonna accuse them of stealing it, they need that to prove it, right?
Fine. Yeah, that's fine. In a court system, there you go. They need to prove, but that's irrelevant. What I'm trying to say is that under your ethic, the first person to come in to mix their land and labor with the item is the owner, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then if a different person comes along and they possess it, that doesn't necessarily mean that they own it.
No, it doesn't mean that they own it. But if you were going to say that person stole it, right? What do you need?
You need evidence.
Okay.
But what I'm saying.
So do you have evidence that your older self stole from your younger self?
That's not relevant.
It is relevant, dude. It is relevant. If you make an accusation against somebody, you have to prove it. You can't just. I understand that, yes, simply because somebody possesses something doesn't mean that they own it. But in order for you to take it from that person, you have to prove that it is yours. You can't just take things without other people's permission. You know this.
Wait, hold on. You can't take things without other people's permission? Are you saying you can't take things without other people's express consent? Oh, okay.
No, you cannot. But if you but if I believe that you took something from somebody without their consent, what do I need to prove that?
Yeah, you would need evidence.
If you believe, listen to me. So if you believe that your older self stole from your younger self, you would need to prove that, right?
Okay, hold on. I'm not okay. Let's roll back a second. I am not gonna say that they stole. I'm not making that claim. Okay, I just want to evaluate your ethic here. I'm not making any claim that they stole. I just want to know what your thoughts are. Okay.
Okay.
So we can dispel with that question. I don't care. I'm not saying they stole.
You said that an older. You're saying that you said earlier that if an older person isn't the same as a younger person, that they stole from their younger selves.
I'm saying
by possessing that property of their older selves, of their younger selves. If you're making an accusation right there.
Can we okay, hold on. We keep going through the same thing. I'm trying to like make an actual progress here, okay? So I'm saying that let's ignore that, okay? Like fine, I don't care. Like I'm not gonna take a position on whether they stole or not. I'm asking just from your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
From your perspective, if there's a person who mix their land with their labor on an item, and you say that that's an owner, and then like they get replaced by another person. Let's say like hypothetically, like so there's like a mad scientist who like disintegrates the person with like a like a teleporter.
Oh
or
well, then
something, and
that
a new
person's
person
dead, and
comes
their
in.
thing would go into commons. It would go back into, and then that
Okay,
other
okay,
person that would be okay in taking that stuff. Yes.
okay. So what if what if instead of like just like killing them, the scientist just like replace their cells with his machine, like instantly, all of his cells get
Oh well,
replaced.
then that other person would be dead.
Oh, okay, so they'd be a different person.
Yeah, they would be a different person. So then that thing would be going into commons, and if that person takes that, they wouldn't be violating any person's rights because that person is dead.
Okay, sure. So now let's
Now,
continue
if
with this
you think
hypothetical.
now,
Hold on,
let's
hold on, hold on,
say,
hold on, hold on.
yeah, now let's say
Hold
you took things from
hold
that other
on.
person, you would need
Let's
evidence, right?
yeah, yes, dude. Why do you keep going back to this? I already said yes. We don't need to keep repeating that again and again and again. I'm just trying to. Can we move on forward with the conversation? Okay.
Okay.
Yes. So let's say that person who you agree owned it because they mixed their land and the labor. Let's say they leave the house, and then the scientist replaces their cells. Another person comes in, takes the house. Who owns it now?
Is the other
Who
person
does it?
dead?
Their cells got replaced by the scientists. You said
So
that
they're dead, right?
that would,
That would mean
so
they're
they're dead.
dead. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So then, yeah, it
Right.
wouldn't be theft.
Okay, perfect. So let's say that I own a house. I mix my land with my labor on it. I leave for like however long it takes for all of my cells to get replaced. In the time that I've left, another person has possessed the house. In your view, that person now owns the house because I'm no longer the
That
same
you would
person.
have to prove the person would have to prove that you are a different person
No,
than the earlier person.
but I've already said that they but you already agreed that they are because their cells got replaced. You already admitted
Yeah,
that.
you would need to.
You accepted
Well,
that.
hold on. I did not accept that. I don't accept
I
that simply because your
wait, wait,
cells are
wait,
replaced. That
wait,
you're a different
wait,
person.
wait,
I was just
wait.
I never
Hold
accepted
on,
that.
hold on. No, I asked you for your perspective. I gave you an example of a
You may have a
scientist
different
replacing a
body,
cell
but it may not
instantly.
make you a different person.
Okay, I gave you an example where the scientists instantly replace your cells. What you said to me was that the old person is dead and it's a new
Yeah,
person.
but you're
So now you're
talking
going
about
back on that
wait.
thing.
That's
Now
different. That's different. You're
you're
talking about
how?
somebody vaporizing another person and
No,
then
no, 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 no,
replacing
no,
them with
no,
another
no,
person.
no, 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 no. That's not what I said in the hypothetical. What I said is that the scientist has a machine that replaces their cells
Yeah, replacing
only.
someone's cells is with another person's cells. That's a different person.
No, no, no,
Your
no. They're
body's
not.
replacing your
Hold on.
cells with your same body cells.
What does that even mean? What do you mean?
Your
They're
body's
just the same
cells
body.
are replacing themselves with their own cells. What you're talking about are they replacing that person's cells with their own cells or somebody else's cells?
What do you mean by your own cells?
The cells that are tied to your DNA.
Hold on. Okay. So you think that wait, hold on. So you think that the cells that get replaced are just still the same cells as the one that were there earlier?
They may not be the same exact cells, but they have the same DNA. The DNA is still there.
So okay, so you think that the DNA makes them the same person over time?
Well, yeah, because your DNA is like kind of like who you are and your consciousness.
Well, what? Hold on. What do you mean by? But like, how do you know someone's consciousness is the same over time?
It's impossible. We can only assume so.
So okay, so you can't give me an argument that it's the same over time.
Yes, but we can't make an argument that it isn't. It's impossible to know.
That's stupid. Yeah, I can't. You can't give me an argument for God, and I can't give you an argument that God doesn't exist. But obviously,
Yes,
one
so
of
we
us
can
needs
only
to prove
assume that
that.
he
Like,
doesn't exist until there's evidence that he does.
yeah, and we can only assume that they're not the same person. You can give me evidence that they are the same person, right?
There's no evidence that they aren't the same person.
There's no evidence that God doesn't exist.
Yeah, but the thing is, I'm not saying God doesn't exist.
Dude.
I don't know. We don't know whether God exists or not.
Okay, sure,
So we don't
but
know one way or the other. I just don't believe he
sure,
doesn't exist because there's no evidence. But
okay,
I don't know if he's
and
real.
there's
He could be real.
okay, yeah, sure. We can't know 100% sure, but if there's no evidence, you agree that's a good reason to believe that that's not true, right? There's no evidence.
Not necessarily. It could be true.
It it could be sure, but you just told me that like
Yeah,
if there's no
I'm
evidence
not
for
a.
God,
I believe in like if it could be true, then there's a possibility that it could be true. But
Yeah, that's tautological. Yeah, sure.
yeah.
If it could be true, it's possible that it's true. Sure.
hmm
But you just said that you don't believe in God because there's no evidence he's real, right? It
Well,
could be the
me
case he's true.
personally, I don't believe in God, but I don't know for a fact.
Okay, yeah, sure, that's fine. Yeah, that's not relevant. What I'm saying is like you do you not agree that if there's like no evidence or something, you don't think that's a good reason to believe that it probably doesn't exist?
No.
So you don't
That's
think
like
that like
saying
you
that's
don't,
like saying there's no evidence that dodos or some or aliens don't exist. So that means that they don't exist. It's just like it could be possible that there are aliens out
no,
there.
it's saying okay, no. It's saying that it's more likely that they don't exist than they do because there's no evidence that they exist.
It
Do you
could
not
be
think that's
true
a
that
fair
they don't
statement?
exist, but it could also be true
That's
that they do.
okay, that's not an answer. I'm asking you, like, do you not think that it's that the fact that we don't have evidence for something makes it more likely that it doesn't exist at
No,
all? You don't think that affects it at all?
not
So
if you
you
don't
would
have any
never.
evidence. If you don't have evidence, then the claim is you can't go one way or the other.
Oh, this is crazy. Okay, so like you don't. So we can't say like, and we can't say like we can't say it's likely that unicorns don't exist. We have to say it's like they could exist, they couldn't. There's just no like
I mean, you
they
could say
could
it's
like
I don't think that it exists, or and I don't believe that it
sure,
exists. But to say
sure.
definitively that unicorns never existed and will never
I'm
exist,
not.
that doesn't make
I'm
any
not saying.
sense.
I'm not saying definitively. What I'm saying is that there's like a view in philosophy. It's called like phenomenal conservatism, which is the idea that like things are the way that we see them generally. Like things are the way that we see them. We expect that the way that we see things are the way things are, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is that like if we have zero evidence, we've never observed anything about the existence of like say a unicorn, that raises the probability that they don't exist. That doesn't mean it's absolutely the case that they don't exist, but it raises the probability. Do you not agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with
You
that.
agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So you agree that if there's no evidence of something, it raises the probability that it doesn't
Yeah, but
exist.
that doesn't matter to me.
Okay, sure. So what I'm saying is that like,
Why would that
oh
matter
my
to me?
gosh.
Whether there's a probability that God doesn't exist or it does exist. He either exists or he doesn't exist. There's either evidence that he exists or there isn't any evidence that he exists.
So okay, but because you realize that like ultimately, like
That I
the,
don't go
the
by
problem with it.
probability. Oh, there's a 75% chance that this God it doesn't exist. I don't go by that. There either is evidence
Well,
to substantiate the claim or there is not evidence.
okay, but the problem with that is that like literally there's going to be a probability to every single piece of evidence because you can never know for certain if anything is like 100% true. There's always going to be like it's going to be like 99%, right? But you can never have like 100% probability that something is right or wrong, right?
Well, no, but the thing is, you're making when you're making a extraordinary claim, you need extraordinary evidence. So, for instance, like a God claim,
I
yeah, I
agree.
think
I
you're
agree.
gonna need some evidence that yeah.
I agree. I agree. You need evidence to prove, to at least you need some evidence to indicate that it's like probably the case that
So,
like
if you believe
that it
that
exists.
your older self stole from your younger self,
Hold on, hold on,
you
hold
need
on.
evidence,
You
right?
don't hold on. Don't change the topic.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about whether or not a person has the same consciousness over time. You made the claim
Well, there's no
that they have the
possible
same
way to
consciousness.
know that.
It's not about knowledge. I'm asking you. Yeah. Okay, sure. But I'm asking you, what is I asked you like what makes the same person over time. You couldn't give me like a complete like concrete answer. You just said that there's no evidence to believe that it's the same person over time. But you just believe it. Like I don't understand how
Well,
how
I
that
don't
makes
have
sense.
any evidence that they aren't the same person.
And I don't have any evidence that God doesn't exist.
Okay, so that's why I'm saying I don't know.
But you literally
I'm
just
not
said that
making a claim. I'm not the one making a claim here.
you made the claim that you believe that God doesn't exist, right?
Well, yes, but I personally believe because there's no evidence, but that doesn't mean
Yeah.
that I'm
Sure.
right. I could be wrong.
Okay.
I'm just that's my opinion.
Sure.
You know,
No,
I admit I could be wrong about that. There could be a
okay.
God out there.
Yeah. But okay, but it sounds like what you're saying then is that you think that if there's no evidence to believe something, you think that there's like that it's reasonable to not believe in it, right?
I'm not saying that it's unreasonable to not believe it. I'm just saying that you don't
Dude,
have evidence.
okay.
I'm just saying that you don't have evidence that it is true.
Dude, you're just okay. You're I don't like
But reasonable
okay.
is very like that word reasonable is extremely subjective. Like
So the problem is that you're just completely like you just keep doing this thing like I'm trying to like you just keep saying like oh like I'm just trying to say like you have no evidence for something so it's not the case and you're just saying like oh it's not the case like sure like okay like I don't understand like what we're even trying to do here. It's like
You're
I'm
trying to
say,
prove that your older self stole from your younger self, right?
no, we
Yeah.
have moved off that already. I said that I'm not talking about my perspective here. I'm trying to get your perspective of whether or
I've
not
given
it's
you my
stealing or not.
perspective.
Yes, and we've already talked about that, and now we're on a different point. I don't know why you keep going back to that same point that we've already addressed a million times. We are now talking about whether or not someone is the same person over time.
Yeah, I don't
Like,
think there's
keep
any
up with the
way to
conversation.
prove that.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way to prove that, and
There's
in
also
the
no
case of
way to disprove that.
sure, but in the case
So
of
then all I
God,
can say is I don't know, right?
but in the case of God, you seem to believe that God doesn't exist, right? Do you deny that or do you agree with that? Because you said that
Well,
before.
I don't believe that God exists, but my
Yeah, you
opinion
don't
could be
believe
wrong.
anything could be wrong about anything.
Hmm.
That's meaningless, okay? But what I'm trying to say is that like if you have if you believe something, then you would agree you have a reason to believe it, right?
Well, yeah.
Or do you just
Well, I have
yeah,
my own personal reasons.
yeah, you okay, sure. I'm asking is for your perspective. I'm not asking for anybody else's, okay? I'm
Well, if I
asking
don't have
for
evidence for something, generally, um, I don't believe that it is true unless I have evidence for it.
sure, I
Hmm.
agree with that.
But that
So
doesn't
from that
mean, but that's not me saying that,
dude,
it
okay,
isn't
I
true.
understand. I get that. I get that.
Okay, so then what's your point? What's the point that you're trying to make? Hurry
I don't
up, man.
because you keep like oh my gosh you keep making a statement and then like immediately like trying to like okay you said you said that you just said that if there's no evidence for something you think that you have that's a good reason to not believe that it exists, right?
Hmm. Well, I
Right.
mean,
So then
for
why
me at least,
uh,
but it
okay
could not
for
be
you
true.
all I care about is your perspective.
Hmm.
I don't care about anyone else's. So just say you agree that if there's no evidence for something, you have a reason to not believe it, right?
Generally, yeah.
Yeah. So why would that not apply for the personhood thing?
Because there isn't no evidence one way or the other.
Dude, but oh my gosh, but okay, but that applies to literally everything. But you just said
Yeah, but I
that if
don't
there's
know.
no
I'm saying I don't know in that situation.
okay, no,
I'm
no,
not
no,
making a
but
claim.
you, dude, okay, you keep running away from this claim. You said that if there's no evidence for something, you said that that's a decent reason to not believe it for you,
Yeah,
your
you could
perspective.
disbelieve it. I'm not saying you're
Yeah,
wrong
yeah,
for
yeah.
disbelieving it. I'm just saying we don't know.
Okay, I don't.
That's why I'm
No, no,
saying
no.
I
But
don't know.
wait, hold on. Okay, you're just running away from your claim now. You said that if there's no evidence for something, you said that you, in your perspective, you said that's
I don't think
reason
it's
to not believe it,
unreasonable
right?
for you to disbelieve it. Yeah,
Okay, but no, I don't.
but
I don't
that
care about
doesn't
like.
mean that
But
it's true.
I don't care about what you believe is reasonable or unreasonable. I'm asking for your perspective. If there's no
That
evidence
is
for
my
something,
perspective. I'm giving you my
no, 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 no,
perspective.
no, 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 no. I'm asking you if there is no evidence for something. Would you say that you believe it, or would you say that it's like that you believe it, or
I
that
don't
you
think it's
believe it's not true?
unreasonable for someone not to believe it. Yes.
I'm asking. Can you just say that? Okay. Can you say that you wouldn't believe it if there's no evidence for it,
It depends on
or
the
do you deny that
situation.
statement? Well, okay. What factors does it depend on?
It depends on how outlandish the thing is, what the claim that you're making is.
How outlandish the claim is? What does outlandish mean
So, for
in that
instance,
context?
if you're making a claim like a God claim, where there is no evidence at all for that, well then, I'm generally just not going to believe it. But if
Okay,
there are
but
certain things that could
hold on.
infer, hold on, but if there are certain things that could infer that what you're saying is true, then all I could say is I don't know.
Okay, sure. Okay, so that's okay. So all you said there is that like, yeah, if there's no evidence for something, I don't believe it. But if there is some evidence for it, then I believe it. Sure, that's that's literally what I've been trying to get you to admit this whole time.
Hmm.
But so like, and then you also said that when it comes to the personal identity thing, you don't think there's any evidence that makes someone the same person over time.
Hmm.
Okay, so then why do you not
But as
hold
far as I
if
can
you
tell, there isn't any evidence
oh
that
my
we aren't the same
god.
person over time.
And there's no evidence that God doesn't exist, but you also said that you don't believe he exists.
Yeah,
Like,
but I'm also admitting that I think there is a possible chance that he could exist.
okay, sure. Yeah, we already went over this.
That's not inconsistent. Just because I say that I don't believe something doesn't mean that I'm saying that it's impossible for that thing to happen. I just don't believe it.
I never said that. You said that there's zero.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, in your situation, is I don't know whether or not it is true. What you're saying is true. I don't believe it because there's no evidence. But if there is evidence that does come out, I will believe it.
Oh, okay. You just gave an admission. You just gave an admission. You don't believe that there's something that makes the same person over time. You just said that.
No. Well, I don't know.
You just said that.
No, I said I don't know.
No, you said that I don't believe it.
Is there evidence that we aren't the same person?
Hold on, wait. You just said.
But is there evidence that we aren't the same person over time?
You just said I.
Wait, is there evidence that we aren't the same person over time?
Is
there
you running away from your question?
I'm not running away. I'm asking you a simple question. Is there evidence that we don't have? We're not the same person over time?
No. Do you deny that you said that I don't believe it? Do you deny?
Well, I don't know. I told you I don't know.
But you said before that you don't believe it. Do you deny that you said that?
If there's no evidence, then I won't believe it. But I don't think I don't know.
Okay, if there's no evidence that you won't believe it, okay.
So is there evidence? Is there evidence that your older self is different from your younger self?
Wait, hold on. No, you're
making a claim that your older self is different from your younger self. Do you have evidence for that?
Yeah, my evidence that there's nothing that makes there's no single.
So
thing
your
that makes them
evidence,
the same person.
yeah. So your evidence is that there is no evidence.
Yes, which you agreed before, is that like that's a good reason to not believe in something.
It depends on the situation.
Okay, and I asked you about that. Then you said it depends on how outlandish the claim was. I mean, when I asked you what outlandish means, it just means if there's no evidence for it, then it's outlandish. It's just like circular.
But there is evidence that people are the same over time. Well, their personality is the same, their DNA is the same, the way that they act is generally the same.
That's not true. That's not necessarily true. Some people can act. People can act differently over time. They can change how.
Yeah, but that doesn't prove that they're not the same person.
Then what makes them the same person? That's what I'm asking you.
I don't know. I don't know what makes somebody the same person.
Exactly. Okay, so there's no evidence because you.
Yeah, but you're making a claim that somebody is different from their younger self. So I need evidence for that.
And you're making the claim that they're the same, so I need evidence for that.
I'm not making a claim that they're the same. I'm saying I don't know. And if you're making a claim that they are different, you have to give me evidence for that.
Okay, sure. So here's how I argue for it. My argument is the same thing that you made for God, which is that like I think if there's no evidence for it, then it raises the probability that
listen to me.
True.
I'm not making a claim that God exists. You're making a claim that there's a different person. You're different from your younger self. Yes or no? Are you making a claim that you're different from your younger self?
Yeah, I think that
you are making a claim. Yes, you are making a claim that you are different from your younger self. Yes or no?
I think probably.
Yes. Okay, so you're making a claim.
Yeah.
Do you have evidence for that claim?
Yeah, my claim is that there's no evidence that that makes someone the same person over time.
So lack of evidence is evidence.
Yes.
No, that's not.
Yes, it is.
Lack of there being no evidence for God isn't evidence that God doesn't exist.
You agreed to that.
No, it's not. No, I did not. I said that if you don't have evidence, it's not unreasonable for you to believe that it isn't true. But that doesn't mean that it is not true.
Hold on. You changed your statement.
No, I did not. I've been inconsistent this whole time.
Dude, okay. This is on recording. I can go back and clip. Okay, you said before that I'm quoting you. I don't believe in God because there's no evidence he exists. You said that.
But there could. And then what did I say after that?
Yeah, okay.
But what did I say after? No, say what I said after that.
You said he could.
I could be wrong, right?
Yeah, you could be wrong.
Okay, but you're saying, listen to me. You're saying that you're different from your younger self, but you're not adding in that other thing. Could you be wrong? Could you be wrong? Listen to me. Could you? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I could be wrong about anything I believe.
Okay, so then you could be wrong. Okay, so I'm saying if there is evidence that shows that you are wrong, you would believe it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then. So it isn't if there is no evidence. I'm saying it's not unreasonable for you to not to believe it, but it also could be true that you are wrong, right?
Yes,
that's what I'm saying.
Everything.
Okay, there you go.
Everything.
Okay, there you go. That's how I feel about it. Okay. It's easy, simple. If you make a claim, you got to give evidence for it, and I'm not going to believe it until I have evidence for it.
Exactly, I agree. So I don't believe that people are the same person over time.
Yeah, but lack of evidence is not
for
evidence of absence. Absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. You can't say that proves that you are a different person. All you can say is that it proves that you don't know if you are the same person.
I said no. You agree with me on this. I said
No.
that it raises the probability. You agreed with that.
It may raise the probability, but it doesn't prove that you are or aren't the same person.
Okay, hold on.
Does it prove that you are or aren't the same person?
100% no.
No, okay, so then you don't know.
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know.
So then evidence, so that you don't have evidence for it, right? So therefore you can't prove it.
So hold on. But I have reason to believe it.
You may have reason to believe it, but do you have evidence for it?
My evidence is that there's no evidence.
Lack of evidence isn't evidence. Absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence.
It raises the probability. That is evidence.
Okay, that's not evidence.
Hold on. Do you know what credence is?
No, tell me.
Okay, so this is something that's very, very common in this is something that's it's very fundamental in mathematics and probability and Bayesian analysis. This is the fundamental of science. So we have we have things that can raise or lower our credence in something that we don't know for sure, right? So it's if we if there's basically credence is how it's basically just evidence. We don't have to have 100% certainty in something, in proof of something, to know that to say that there's evidence to believe it or evidence to not. Evidence could also just be.
But what if you have no evidence?
Probability. So
at
evidence
all
can. Okay, if you're just gonna do this whole thing we don't have evidence for this or that, this, I don't even see the point of having this conversation, because we could do this for everything, right? I don't have evidence that taxes are aggression either. I don't have evidence that it is, and I don't have evidence that it's not. So therefore you can't make the claim.
Well, you could prove that at aggression.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
Yes, you can.
You can't prove it. No,
well, if I have. Okay, the evidence is if I have a piece of property, I mix my land with the labor, and that's somebody.
What's the evidence is your property? What's the evidence is your property?
By mixing the land and the labor.
What's the evidence that makes it your property?
Well, I get what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying, but the problem is you could prove that you do own something, whereas you can't prove that.
No, you can't.
Your claim.
What's the evidence?
So you can't prove that you own something?
No, you can't.
It's impossible. Even if I show you a receipt. What if I show you a receipt?
How do I know that's proof?
So you can't prove anything.
That's the conclusion of your statement.
No, it's not the conclusion of my statement.
No.
What I'm saying, no, you're not listening to what I'm saying, dude. Listen, open your ears and listen. If you don't have evidence for something, it's reasonable for you to not believe it. But that doesn't mean that it isn't true. You understand that, right?
I agree. And you don't have evidence that it's aggression either.
Yeah, if I'm making an accusation, I would have to perform evidence, bring forth evidence.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you don't have evidence that taxation is aggression.
I do have evidence that taxation of aggression.
No, you don't. You could be wrong, right? You could be wrong.
Well, if I am inhabiting my own body and I believe, and somebody is taking my property without my consent,
you don't have evidence. You don't have evidence that's your property. You don't have evidence of that.
So I can't prove anything.
By your own logic, yes.
No, I'm not. That's not my logic.
No, because you said
that's not my logic.
You said because you could be wrong with something, therefore there's no evidence.
No. I'm not saying that. I said that if you could be wrong, that doesn't mean that you are right.
Exactly. You could be wrong, so then that means that you're not right about taxation being aggression, right? Doesn't mean that you're right.
If I make an accusation that this person is stealing from another person, I need evidence to prove that, right?
Exactly, and you need to provide evidence that taxation is aggression. You haven't provided evidence.
I have.
What's the evidence? No, you haven't.
The aggression is that you're unconsensually taking another person's private property.
You have no evidence that it's their property. That's your property. You don't have evidence of that.
Okay, so then you can't prove anything.
Yeah, that follows from your statement.
That's not my statement. I do believe that you could prove things.
But you don't have evidence that you can prove it.
Yes, you can.
How? You prove it.
By showing it. By showing it to
prove that it's your property.
By showing you that I'm the only other person. That the thing is that the person who currently possesses it, like I explained it to you, is assumed to be the owner until you have evidence that they committed that they didn't.
Prove that I should believe that assumption. What's the evidence for that?
I'm not gonna do this with you. If you don't, if you
You
can't
did that
understand
with
how evidence, if you don't understand how evidence works, that's fine.
you
That's
literally did this
fine.
with me.
I'm not doing
Okay,
that. I
bro.
didn't do that with you. All I
You did.
said,
You
listen to
did.
me. All I said is that you believe that you're making an accusation that an older person stole from a younger person, and
And
I
you made
said,
an accusation.
and I said that I need evidence for that.
And you made an accusation that taxation is aggressive. You need evidence that it's your property. You made
Yeah,
an
my
accusation that it's your
evidence would be
property.
that I mixed my land with labor with my property, or
You need
I
evidence that.
traded it with
Wait, hold on.
I traded
But
it
you
with
need
another
evidence.
person.
You need evidence that that makes it your property. Why should I assume that that makes it your property? You need evidence for that.
Well, you could put forth evidence, right, by basically showing them the receipt or showing them
No, no,
that
no,
you
no,
bought
no,
it.
no, no, no. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying you need evidence that mixing land with labor makes it your property. Why
It's
should
not
I believe
about
that?
evidence.
The evidence.
It's our belief. It's an ethical system.
Oh, okay. So then you don't need evidence.
Well, the person. I mean, to prove that. I mean, to prove that a person may. If you're making an accusation, you need evidence.
And you made an accusation that taxation
What?
is aggression.
Yeah. If taxation
But
is
you can't
aggression,
prove.
if another person doesn't consent to that thing.
Okay, but you can't prove that they didn't consent.
Well, what if I would have asked somebody and then they told me they didn't consent? Then is that
That's
evidence?
not proof.
That isn't proof.
They could be wrong, right? You could be wrong.
So
They could be.
if you tell me I didn't want you to touch me and then I touch you anyways, I didn't do anything wrong there because I can't prove.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's not wrong. It
Okay,
could be wrong. It
so
could be right.
that's what ethics is about. It's about whether or not something is right or wrong, not about whether or not you can prove it. Proof is is a different thing. It's about whether or not something's right or wrong.
That's also about whether it's right or wrong. That's literally what you said. What? What?
No. Listen to me. The NAP and argumentation ethics and all this stuff doesn't tell you like what evidence, like what evidence is this, whatever this is that. It tells you whether or not something is right or wrong.
Yeah,
And if you're going to make an accusation against somebody, you have to show evidence.
exactly. So to make an accusation that the taxation is aggression, you need evidence.
Yeah, I did.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did. If somebody doesn't consent to the taxation, you agreed that taxation is the unconsensual taking of another person's property, right?
Nope. I never agreed to that.
So then, what is taxation?
It's the government taking property.
Without what?
I don't know if it's without consent or not.
So if I were to tell you I didn't consent to this taking of my property, would that be theft?
I don't know if you consented or not.
Yeah, but I just told you I did.
You could be lying.
I'm telling you the truth.
You could be lying.
So you don't believe anything.
So do you see how like you literally just did this to me before?
I didn't do
and now
that
how
to
it's so
you. All I was saying
Yes,
was
you
that if you're
did.
making an accusation, you need evidence.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. But the problem is that like, so we could flip this up. Like, I could flip this like every like because like when I said that you need evidence of consent, you said you need evidence that they didn't consent. So I could do the same thing with you here. You need evidence that you didn't consent to taxation.
Yeah, and I just told you that I didn't consent. That would be the evidence.
But you don't have evidence that you're not lying. I don't have evidence that you're not lying.
So you're saying that I'm lying?
No, I'm not saying that you're not.
Okay,
That you
so
are
if
lying.
you're
I'm just
making
saying
it,
that
yeah. So then,
I'm
if you're
no,
making
no,
an
no.
accusation that I am lying, you would have to prove that I am lying, right?
Yeah, I'm not making the accusation. I'm saying you could be lying. You could not be lying. We don't
Yeah,
know.
I could
I'm
be
saying we
lying,
don't
but
know.
if you were to say that I am lying, you would have to prove that, right?
Well, I never said that you are lying. I
Okay.
just said that you could be.
I understand that, but if you
Yeah.
were to say that, you would have to prove that, right?
Sure, and I never said
So
that.
every time you
So,
make an accusation, you have to prove it, right?
sure.
Okay, so when you say you're making an accusation that an older person is stealing from your younger self, you have to prove that, right?
And you need to prove that taxation is aggression too.
I did.
No, you didn't.
If
You have to prove that's your
taxation, you
property.
told me that it's the unconsensual taking of another person's property, right?
Nope, I never said that.
Okay, so if I didn't consent to the government taking my property, wouldn't that be theft?
Uh, I would need evidence that you didn't consent.
I just told you that I didn't consent.
You could be lying.
Okay, so we shouldn't believe anything that anyone says because they could be lying.
Well, I mean that's what you said, right?
I never said that. I never said that once.
You said that because since we could be wrong or we could be right, we just have to say we don't know. So yeah, I don't know.
Until you have evidence, but if you're making an accusation, you have to provide evidence.
Yeah, but the evidence could be wrong, so I don't know.
Okay, but if you could go based off of the evidence, right? And then
We don't know.
We may not know, but the thing is, you go based off of the evidence, and if you have
I don't know if it's evidence for it.
if there is no evidence, then you can't make the accusation.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't see that. How is evidence?
Well,
You
the
don't know.
evidence is that I just told you that I.
But that's not evidence because you could be lying. So we don't know.
Yeah, but if you think I'm lying, you have to give evidence that I am lying.
I'm not saying that you are lying. I'm just saying it's
If I could be okay, so but if you make an accusation towards me, you have to prove it, right?
Yeah, but I'm not.
So if you think that I'm lying, you have to prove that.
Yeah, but I'm not making an accusation.
Yes,
you could be.
I'm making I'm making a claim that taxation is theft, and I said
the claim. No. You're making the claim that you're telling the truth, but you have to prove that you're not lying.
You don't. No, you don't. You have to prove that I am lying. You're the one making the claim.
No, you have to prove that you're telling the truth. You're making the claim. You're making the claim that you told the truth.
Yes.
Yeah. So how to prove that?
The person making the accusation has to prove it. That I'm
You're
lying.
the one making the claim. You're the one making the claim.
I'm not making a claim. You're making a claim that I stole something, right?
Hold on. So you don't claim that you told the truth? You don't claim that?
Listen to me. You're the one claiming that I stole something, right?
No, I never made any claim. I said I don't know.
So you don't know if somebody stole something from anything, buddy.
Well, yeah, because like you said.
So then, how do you prove anything?
Well, like you said, because we could be wrong, so we don't know. I don't know if it could be right, or I don't know if it could be wrong.
Yeah, but there is evidence for things.
How do you know?
Based off of our perception.
Okay, how do you know that it's correct?
Well, I mean, because it's the only thing I could know.
How do you know that?
Well, I mean, because it's the only thing I can know.
That's circular.
But in order to know something, I have to know something. Like, I can't just not know anything.
How do you know that?
I don't know. That's a hard question.
Listen. Okay, you know what? Like, we're not gonna get anywhere at this point. I think that we might as well just wrap this up. I don't think there's anything.
But you do wait. So you don't think that if you make an accusation against somebody, you need to show evidence?
So the problem is, the problem is that obviously, yeah, if you make an accusation, you have to provide evidence. But the difference between you and me is that I believe that if there's something like, for example, like with regards to God, like if there is no evidence for God, I think it's reasonable to make
I never said it was unreasonable to assume that he isn't real. I'm just saying you don't know for a fact. That's all I'm saying.
I agree, but I'm not saying that I know for a fact. I'm just saying that I think that can be used as evidence to believe that God doesn't exist.
It's not like I can't. There's no way to prove or disprove that. It's not. I'm not saying it's. Listen, I'm not saying it's unreasonable to not believe in God. There's nothing wrong with that. What I'm saying is that we both don't know for a fact.
I agree.
So there are certain things that rise up to the level of evidence that we could reasonably believe, right? But we can never really prove everything. But
we can't prove anything. I agree.
But just because I admit that doesn't mean that I don't think that, you could be. That doesn't mean I agree. Doesn't mean I don't agree with you.
Okay, sure, but so the problem is that I make the statement that I think that there's we have we don't have evidence for if we don't have evidence for God, that's I would say
I don't think it's unreasonable for you to believe that God doesn't exist.
Sure, yeah, and what I'm saying is that based on the fact that there's no evidence, I think that therefore that is good. That alone, I would say that is.
It's not unreasonable. It's not unreasonable to believe that God doesn't exist. Yeah, okay, I agree with that.
But from my perspective, I'm saying that from that I would make the argument that I don't believe God exists because there's no evidence.
I would make the same argument too. But I'm acknowledging is that there is a possibility that I could be wrong. That doesn't mean that I'm saying that we can't prove anything or that you are wrong.
I'm acknowledging that as well, but what I'm just saying is that it applies the same thing to the personhood thing as well. I think that since there's no evidence, I don't believe that it exists. I could be wrong.
Yeah, but the second part no, I'm not disagreeing with that. But the problem is, right, is you're making an accusation that somebody stole something from somebody, right?
No,
By making that claim,
hold on.
you're making an accusation that somebody stole something from someone.
Hold on. That claim, okay. Like I was trying to with that claim, I was trying to ask from your perspective. You know, is it the case that if there's a okay, hold on,
If there was a younger person, if there was two
Hold on,
people,
hold on.
if it was true that a younger person is separate from the older person, they are two different people, would that person be stealing from that person? If you could show me evidence that that is true, and the person didn't consent to that person taking that other person's private property, I would agree with you. That would be theft.
Okay, hold on.
But I said this already.
Wait, listen. I need to take a piss. Can I be right back?
Yeah. But I agreed with you on that.
Okay, just hold on 1 second.
Mm-hmm. Hold on, I'll be right back, too.
Okay, I'm back.
Are you back?
Yeah.
Yeah, alright. So where would we be at?
Okay, so, okay. Oh gosh. Okay, let's start with, okay, so do we agree that, like, even though I could be wrong, I can make the statement that I don't believe in God because there's no evidence for God?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, so can I also say that even though I could be wrong, I could also say that since there's no evidence that I'm the same person over time, therefore I don't believe that I'm the same person over time.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with saying that.
Sure. Okay. So then, okay, sure. Okay, so that was the entire point of like whatever. Like what, I don't know how long we were.
No. The point of contention that I was having with you is that you're saying that your older self is stealing from your younger self, right?
Well, okay. So can I explain that because I'm trying to explain that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I said that was because I'm taking your perspective, which is the idea that because like keep in mind, like I said this to you, right? I said that I don't actually believe in ownership. I believe that like whoever maximizes utility by owning it, by possessing it, should have it.
Mm-hmm.
So that so like in my view, I don't believe that it's theft. But my argument was that it seems that from your perspective, it would be theft.
If you could prove it, yeah.
But okay, but
that's that was my other point. That you would need to prove it. That's my only thing. Sure. Not saying that it isn't theft. You would need to prove it. That's all they're saying. And I'm saying that that would basically be impossible to prove. Like there would be no way to prove that.
Okay, but I gave you an example where I said that like if someone let's say bought a house and then they left the house and then let's say some like scientist invents a tool which allows them to like completely replace all their cells in their body so that they become like a different person. And they like when I say different.
Well, then
person,
I would say
that
that person was dead, the first person is dead, and then the second person basically inhabited that dead person's
No,
stuff.
okay. Yeah, but in the example, what I said is that like while that person is away with the scientist and getting his cells replaced, another person who was not the original owner comes and possesses the house.
Oh,
And
while
then
that
when
other person is dead?
while the other person is getting his cells replaced.
Is that first person consenting to that?
The scientist doing that, yeah.
Oh, okay, so if he's consenting to that, and then, well, then I guess, is the so I'm guessing that the first person is dead, right? After that, right?
Well, that depends on your perspective. Like
I would say that
you
that
think that
person
like
is dead, right? Because if you're replacing their cells, then you're pretty much killing them, right? Or they're dying.
well, so when I say replace, I'm talking about they're replacing it in the same way that our body does, except they're just doing
It's
it
just at
like
a
really
faster
fast.
rate.
Yeah, exactly. It happens like instantly. That's all I'm saying.
Hmm. Let me think about that. I I'm not sure because I'm not sure if your cells replacing itself automatically means that that's not you anymore. I feel like you I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Okay, well, sure, that's fine. I mean, we can disagree with this. Like,
Yeah, I just don't
I'm
know
just
how. I'm just not. I just don't know how. I can't see. Like,
like
it's kind of hard for me to understand. Like, I'm sorry. I'm trying to formulate a question in my head.
okay.
How do I know that simply by replacing your cells, you're not the same person? Anymore.
Well, I mean that's the thing. So like, this is kind of the hype. So like, if you're interested in reading more on this, there's like the philosopher that I'm like getting this from is a guy named Derek Parfit. I recommend you read his book. It's actually
No, yeah, no. I
he goes,
actually like this conversation. This is an interesting conversation.
yeah.
How do you know? I guess my question is like, how do you know that like if like it is true that your cells do replace itself over time, but how do you know that's not
Yeah.
you anymore?
Well, so that's my point, right? Is that like the point of so the point and the reason I bring up the philosopher is that like the ultimate argument is that like it doesn't seem that anything like necessarily sticks from like when we were at a certain point in time to another point in time.
Well, your
So
DNA
like
stays, doesn't it?
so I'm gonna be honest, I don't know a lot about biology, but
Oh well,
like
your
I think that
genetic code is in each
yeah,
cell, and
but it,
when it's split, when it makes another cell, it knows to make the exact the same cell because of that DNA. Like your DNA is basically like your all the things about you that you are, right? And that's
yeah,
how
I get
your
that.
cell. That's how you are the same when you grow up. You still have the same facial structure. You still have the same stuff, as you grow older because your DNA sort of keeps you the
Well, sure, but
same.
it so but like you don't think it changes like at all? Like do you think it stays like
Well, not as
exactly the
far as
same?
I could
Or
tell. I mean, unless you have evidence that it does. I mean, listen, I'll admit I don't know much about this, but as
I
far
don't know
as I
much
could
about
tell,
that
your
either.
DNA doesn't really change when your cells replace. I'm pretty sure it's the same. I mean, I
what
may
if
be
you got
wrong
like
about this. I may be wrong about
what
this.
what if you got like cancer?
I'm pretty sure cancer isn't you anymore. I'm pretty sure that's like another thing
Oh,
or a
well,
mutation.
yeah. Well, I guess like so that could be like another example. Like if you get cancer, are you the same person as the prior to getting cancer?
I mean, I guess it would depend on whether it's like if that cancer is you or
Well, I
if by
mean,
becoming a cancer it is no longer you. I don't know.
well, yeah, if you develop like cancer, I assume cancer changes your cells, right? I think
I
like
mean, if I
it
don't know
mutates
if is
something.
cancer you is a cancer part of you or is it just a I don't know. I can't answer that question. I don't know.
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, like, yeah, I don't know.
This
Yeah,
is a lot more complicated than it seems. That's all I'm trying to make it seem. Like it isn't as
I
simple as like, oh, your older self stole from your younger self. It isn't as simple as
I,
that. You can't really know
I agree.
that.
Well, okay, sure. Well, but I was just trying to make the argument that, like, from your perspective, it seems that if we can agree on the idea that they're a different person over
Okay,
time,
yeah. So
then
let's say this. Let's say we both agree. Let's say we were to prove that it is a different person. And there
yeah,
is a scientific way that we could prove it. I don't know how we could, but let's just say hypothetically we could. That it is a different person. And what was your hypothetical that like the person is changing to another person, and then another person takes that other person's house?
Yeah. So
Okay,
I get the
so
example of like yeah.
okay, so let's say hypothetical that that person is dead because they changed their cells. Then I would say that dead person stuff would then be in basically go back to the commons. It
Yeah.
would
Okay.
not go to that another person.
Yeah, but I just Googled, I don't know, like I have not done any research on this. I just Googled,
Mm-hmm.
does your DNA change over time? And like the first link is saying that it does change as we age, apparently.
Oh well,
I don't know
then
anything about biology, so I could be wrong about that. I don't know.
okay, yeah, I don't know neither. I'll admit I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, I don't know if your genes are the same or if they may change. I don't know. But even if that was true, I'm not even sure if that even implies that you are a different person. You know. Oh,
Well,
so
sure,
what
but
is you? You know.
that is the fundamental thing that like is being trying to that like the philosopher that I quoted is trying to point like figure out. It's like it doesn't really seem like we have like an actual valid concept of like that makes you over time.
Yeah, but just because we don't have may not have a solid concept of it doesn't mean we can't sort of work with what we got. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so like so this is
Yeah.
another part of it is that like so there's something called a like a social fiction,
Hmm.
which is like so like for example, if I make the statement like Spider-Man lives in New York,
Hmm.
that statement, if we're talking about reality, is false because Spider-Man doesn't exist in reality.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's yeah, he doesn't live in New York. He doesn't exist.
Hmm.
But in the context of like we know the reason that we would say it's true is because we have a social fiction of Spider-Man where we know he does live in New York in a comic book.
Hmm.
And so when it comes to like this concept of like personal identity and like what makes you you, we have these like a kind of very loose social fiction kind of correlations that make that we seems to be so like to make a person. So like I can kind of like make like the statement that that you are you like in a sense that like like I'm talking to someone whose name is like Sithis and like
Hmm.
you have these you debate you're an ANCAP, you have these identities about you. But those things don't really seem to actually when we go down to the core, it doesn't really seem to make you what you are. It doesn't seem to exist. But we can say as a social fiction, yeah, we can pretend it exists. That's essentially what I'm trying to say. Kind of like the
Yeah,
Spider-Man
well,
example.
I guess we can only work with what we got. We kind of have to do what we can to make the best practical decisions with the information that we have. We may not know whether or not your future self is the same as your younger self, but all we can do is sort of work with what we got. We can only assume that you are the same person unless you have evidence that they aren't.
Well, okay, I obviously disagree with that, but yeah, I don't know how
Yeah, because like
more we can.
I can't imagine like taking something from somebody because you think that they're taking something from their younger self. Like to me, that you would need some sort of evidence to prove that they stole
Well,
it.
so this is the thing. It's not like um the thing the way that I get around this because my ethic isn't really based on anything to do with like persons. I don't
Hmm.
really care about like if you own it like if you own it at this time and you change into a different person like is that still like do you still own it because you were the one who mixed your land with labor? Like that doesn't really matter to my calculation. My calculation is just like does it produce the best outcomes for
No,
us to
I
have this
I understand that,
arrangement?
but you're more
Yeah,
testing my ethic, which is fine.
yeah, I'm testing your ethic
You're more
exactly.
than welcome to do that. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
I think these are perfectly good questions. I think they're pretty interesting questions. I actually never even really thought of that. You've given me a new perspective that I've actually never really heard of, so I appreciate that. But I guess, and to close this off,
Sure.
um, based on the information that I have, my opinion of it is: let's say there is it is true that your older self is different from your younger self, and you can prove that your younger self didn't consent to your older self giving it to whatever. Well, then, and you could prove that they are two different people. Well, then, yeah, I would have to no choice but to say that it is theft. But you would have to prove all those things before I could say that. And
Well, the thing is that like, but like the thing is like, so you when we're talking about proof, like, but I've already given you like the okay, so like when it comes to like the proof thing, like I'm asking you like so like you seem to kind of agree with me that like since there's no real like way to like say that like this thing or certain things make this a person the same person over time. That seems like we it seems to be kind of somewhat
Well,
evidence in favor
well,
that they
you're
probably doesn't.
proving the first claim, but then you would have to prove the second claim, which is that
Well,
the second person took the thing from the first person without their consent.
well, sure. So when it comes to that, I gave you an example, right, which you
Mhm.
seem to kind of agree with, which is where like if another person like if a person mixes their land with the labor and then they go away, they get themselves replaced by the scientist, someone else possesses it. It seems like you don't really think
No,
that the
I would
possessor
say that
owns it.
then that person, the first person, would be dead in the first. But then you would have that in itself would be the evidence, right? But in most
Yeah.
situations, you don't have a scientist there that you could look to and be like, oh yeah, that you could be like, hey, this scientist did this, so therefore this is a different person. Blah, 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 blah. Like you're giving me a hypothetical where you could prove it, right? And if
Wait, how
you
do you?
could prove it, then yes, I would say yes. But
Wait, but
you
what does the
can't
scientist
generally.
prove?
Well, the
What does the
scientist
scientist
can
prove?
prove that
Yeah.
he did the scientific experiment.
But okay,
Well, he
so
could
all the
prove that
scientists.
it was two different peoples by showing the fact that he did it. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. So then, okay, let's change the hypothetical then. Let's say that there was no scientist. There was just a random like a teleporter thing that was just there that just came from the sky or something. And then like the guy walks in to the teleporter and then his cells get replaced. There's nobody else around.
Mm-hmm.
So would your evaluation change then?
The person making the accusation would have to prove that first person who got into the teleporter is a different person from the person who left it.
So you don't think that they're a different person? I'm just asking for your
I mean,
perspective.
if I don't know, I mean, if so, if let's say it is, then you would have to give evidence that that person is a different person.
But I'm okay. But like, here's the problem. I'm asking for your
Oh,
perspective.
if it is a different person,
If it
then
is. Yeah.
if it is a different person, then
No.
that other person's thing would go into the commons, and then you could take it.
Sure. But I'm asking you, like, does that make them a different person? Like,
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
so, but that's the thing is that like, so
I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a hard question. That's like a really, yeah, I don't know.
So that's the thing. It kind of seems like, it seems to me that it doesn't really seem. It seems like your ethic has a very difficult time kind of evaluating like.
Well, any
Evaluating.
ethic is gonna have a difficult time dealing with that situation.
Well, I think so.
I mean,
can
there's
explain from mine.
I mean, any ethic is gonna have a hard time, dealing with that situation.
Well, the reason that your ethic in particular has a difficult time is because like you have this sort of like temporal aspect where you're like, okay, this specific person mixed their land with the labor, and so they own it, and so that chain needs to exist. And if the chain is broken, it kind of seems to like throw everything into like a kind of weird. We don't know what to do.
Well, just because there is a situation where it's hard to figure out what to do doesn't make the ethic
Sure.
not good. You know what I'm saying? Like if we were to say if you could prove that person stole from another person, it's always going to be wrong no matter what.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Not saying that. I'm not saying that this is like this like completely defeats your ethic or whatever. I was just using this was just like an argument I wanted to throw out just to see how you would respond to it.
Hey,
like,
throw it at me, man. So yeah, like I said, just because it's hard to figure out whether or not somebody violated another person's right or didn't violate another person's right, doesn't take away from the fact about whether or not if they had done it, it would be wrong. You know?
Yeah, but like so here's the thing. So like I'm giving you like kind of all the information that to try to evaluate it, but it seems that like
wait, what was the question again?
So okay, so like the hypothetical is basically just like I'm asking you like from your perspective when the person goes to the teleporter and like gets all his cells like changed.
I said I don't know. I have no idea.
So that's the thing. That's the thing. It seems like I don't really see how you could.
I guess I would have to assume. I guess I would have to assume that person is the same person.
Okay.
Unless I have evidence that he isn't the same person.
But like, but like, the thing is, like, you say assume, but like, I'm asking you, what do you?
I don't know. I honestly have no idea. I can't answer that question because I don't know. Like that's a question that I don't know. That's like saying like, can God create a rock that's too heavy that he can't carry or something like, or like you're asking, no, it's like asking me a question about like the Like, what happened before evolution? It's just like,
Well,
I
sure.
don't
So
know,
like,
you know.
but like, no, the thing is, like, this is just a question based on your perspective. There's no like wrong answer necessarily. It's just
Oh,
like
I
what
don't
you
know.
consider.
I have no idea. If I have no idea if it's the same person. I would
Because like,
if
so
I
like
were to
you,
go one if I were to choose one way or the other, like if you were to force me to choose one way or the other, I would probably say that it's probably the same person.
okay. Well, I mean, yeah, but
I would assume that
I
it's
don't
the
know.
same person, right? Unless
Well,
you
I would assume the opposite, but like,
what would make you assume it's not the same person?
well, because it doesn't, because like I said, it doesn't seem that there's anything that ties, that like connects the first person to the second person.
Well, they
They
have
seem
the
to be like completely
same. They
different.
would have the same DNA, right? Or genetics or
Well,
whatever,
I mean,
right?
like I said, I don't know biology, but I Googled this and it says apparently that your DNA changes as you age. I don't know the exact biology,
Yeah,
so
but
I
you're
can't
talking
like
about like
speak to it.
we're not talking about like somebody aging. We're talking about somebody teleporting.
Well, we can assume. Like, I can add that to the hypothetical. Let's say that they age and then they're such that their DNA also changes. Like, would that change your evaluation?
Well then in that situation, yeah, I would probably say that it is a different person.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe,
So
yeah, yeah,
we do agree. Okay.
yeah. I just
So
didn't. I had to think about it. I didn't really know.
sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thing, right? So like, if if you do think it's a different person, then how do you evaluate the situation? Does the property
Oh,
go
well,
back
in
to the
that
owner
situation, I
or
guess I would have to say that the person who is possessing the body, we would have to assume that they are the same person, unless you
wait?
have evidence that they are not.
But didn't you just say that you think that they're a different person?
Um, well, I think, but I don't have evidence. Like I don't know for sure.
But okay, but all I'm asking is your perspective. Are they a different person or not? Like, do you think
Oh,
so?
do I think they would be a different person if they're like their whole
Yeah.
all their cells changed and their DNA changed
Yeah.
and like their genetics and everything? Oh, well then yeah.
Okay, so so when that happens, then what happens to the property? Does it belong to
Oh, well then that first person
the
would be
you?
dead. Yeah, that first person would property would be dead. Then it would go into the common. Like it would. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Then the person who was the other person who came and stole it, like quote
Well,
unquote,
they didn't steal it
but
because
they didn't steal.
no, yeah, yeah, because
They
it's yeah.
so like they so what I the hypothetical is that like they came to the house when the person left, the person who mixed the land with the labor, and then like they started possessing the house while the first person was still alive, and then the transformation happened, and then like now it would just belong to the
Wait, say
like
that again. I'm
former.
sorry. Say that again.
Okay. So um the person leaves the house, the owner
Mhm.
of the house leaves, and then as soon as he leaves, the person who the possessor comes into the house. So
Mhm.
the owner is still alive, and the person is staying in the house. Then the owner goes inside the teleporter and changes his entire like DNA and everything. So he would be like a former theft, right? In your
Oh,
ethic, supposedly.
if he took it before the person died.
Yeah,
Oh, well then yeah, that would be theft.
yeah. But then what would happen after the person quote unquote dies? Does the
Oh, I
former
mean,
theft own
it
it?
would have been theft at the time that he's alive, but when he
Yeah.
dies, I
Then
mean, there's nothing you could
the
do at that
possessor,
point. Yeah.
yeah, the possessor would possess it, right?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
But it would
Yeah. So
at
then,
the time that he's still alive, it would be still be wrong for him to take it.
yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I was trying to say. That's why
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
just
yeah.
like quote
I had
unquote
a hard time
former
understanding
theft.
what you're trying to say. That's all. You're good.
Yeah. So I guess like yeah. So that's the thing. It's so like it seems to be the case that like if you agree with that, then the consequence of that sort of thing would be that like if someone if like because that could happen in real life, right? Like what I'm describing isn't something that's like impossible. It's just that like if someone like has a property and then they leave it such that like enough time has passed such that all their cells have changed, their DNA supposedly changes, and then someone else is possessing it, it seems that you would have to then also agree that like yeah, the possessor now owns it from your ethic.
Oh, only if, but the only way that you could do that is by proving
But like
that you would have to prove that that first person that first person is no longer alive anymore.
but you agree that he would be, right? Assuming we know that his cells and everything have changed.
If we lived in a perfect world with all the evidence available, then yes. But we don't live in a
Yeah,
perfect
okay.
world. You know what I'm
That's what
saying?
that's
Yeah.
okay.
If
Sure,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, I get what you're saying. So yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. We wouldn't have evidence that his all of his cells changed and everything, but I'm just saying that if we knew that all of his cells and
If we
everything
lived in a
changed with the
perfect
ages,
world where we had all the evidence and that and what you're saying is 100% true and da 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 da, on and on and on, then yeah.
Well, okay,
That
sure,
would
but
be
like,
theft. I mean, not theft, whatever.
but that's the thing. Is that like it's so like because since we know that like our cells do change and all the DNA does change, it does seem to be the case that this would happen. This could happen in reality, and you wouldn't say it's unethical, right?
It could happen, but well, I mean, I don't know if it could happen because it would. I don't know if you
but
could prove that.
but we do have evidence that our cells change and our
We
DNA
do have
changes,
evidence
right?
that our cells change, but that doesn't
Yeah,
mean that you could prove that this person is older than that person, so therefore he's no longer that person anymore. You have to give evidence for that.
but I'm asking. Okay, but then like for me to know what evidence I need to provide, I need to know what you think makes them the same person, or what would change them. You need to provide that to me so that I can give you the evidence.
I don't know.
Well,
I
well,
can
if
only.
you're saying that,
I don't know. I don't know enough about that subject to answer
but
that question.
but that's the problem, right? So it's like if you want evidence, I can't really give you evidence if you also don't know what I need to provide, right? That's the hard part.
Yeah, that's the thing about identity. It's kind of
Yeah,
a hard thing to know.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So that's
I
pretty
mean,
much it. That's all I can really say about that.
yeah. I guess we can wrap it up. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like that's yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I guess I'll just give a short closing statement. So
Yep.
like
Yep.
in summary, yeah. So just to shout out myself again. My
Yeah.
name
Go
is
ahead.
Vexy. I have a YouTube channel. I probably will upload this debate. I've been recording it as well. Yeah, this is interesting. A lot of the arguments are. This is something I've thought about a lot. So like stuff like argumentation ethics and like the voluntary thing. I don't know. I think that I did a good job kind of demonstrating my perspective on that and like
Mm-hmm.
how. Yeah. And yeah,
Yeah, I'll
the last
definitely have
one
to
like.
think about that more and come back to you.
Yeah, for sure. If you ever want to have like a second debate, we can.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, anyways, yeah, and as for the third thing, like, yeah, this isn't like a knockdown argument for libertarianism. Like, you could, if you wanted to, you could just bite the bullet and say like, yeah, they can take. So it's like, I'm not saying this defeats your entire ethic, but I'm just saying that like, this is like an interesting case that I think is a bit hard for your ethic to solve. And yeah, that's it. I guess like that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I guess I can only there's always going to be cases where there's not going to be a clear answer about who committed the aggression or not committed the aggression. You know, there's always going to be situations like that. The thing is, I guess for libertarianism is that we define what is wrong and what is right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like we
I
know,
mean,
we
yeah,
believe that rape is wrong. We believe that stealing is wrong. We believe that murder is wrong. There's no circumstance in which you could give me where I would say that it is okay. You know, we're consistent across the board on that.
sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that part at
Mhm.
least. Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think that's it. Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay, man. You know
All
what, man?
right.
I had a really great conversation with you, man. I really liked your talk. I feel like you've given me a bit of an. I never had anybody talk to me about the whole body thing, so that was definitely an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much it, right? Yep.
Yeah, I guess so. All
All
right.
right, man.
I guess. Yeah. See you.
Have a good night,
Bye.
man. It was good talking
Yeah,
to
you
you.
too. You too. Bye.
All right, guys. Hope you guys have a good night. That was a good conversation. Hope to see you guys next time.